We're live. Hello,
Hey,
everybody.
hi everyone.
Hey, no man of God. Yeah, you're welcome. I'm glad you guys are enjoying it. And um,
Oh, that's
y-
perfect. That's exactly why we're doing it. Yeah, there were a lot of people that were interested. That it just they just saw how long it was. It's like I just don't have time.
yeah,
But if you're in
no,
the car or driving or something
yeah,
like that, or doing chores, and you
yeah,
can listen to it while doing other stuff. So that makes me happy. Good.
it's perfect. Hey, Ashley, a beautiful mess. Look at that
Hey,
dog with
Ashley.
glasses. Oh, it's so cute. All right. Well, I mean, we should just probably get right into it. Wait, Juliet, did you say yes to the video or no? I don't remember.
I don't think I answered. We just talked
Oh,
about it. Then
I guess okay, let's do it this way. If maybe if he's complaining about a couple, then we could play it for like that one, or should we do it anyway? Is what I'm so
what
you
if we
guys, I
stopped
found like
halfway?
all his episodes, which I'm gonna release them anyway. I'm gonna do it like as a compilation. There's 22 of them. I went to the internet archive and found all 22 episodes. Most there's like probably like five or six that have music that I'm not gonna be able to play. He's just in the car playing music. Sometimes he'll like go back and like the one time he's like winking at the cameras.
Are they
So I won't
called
be able to put
episodes?
what's that?
Are they called? Did he name them episodes?
No, but he named them all, and somebody, at the art in the internet place. Oh my god, I can't even talk. Am I gonna be able to read?
They
Yeah, they
called
just
them
they just said
episodes.
episode. They just
Yeah.
do like episodes. They just labeled them so they're in order for how they happen and stuff. Um,
Okay.
so I'm gonna eventually do a compilation and play them all. Maybe I'll play even the ones with music, just the parts where he like puts the camera back on him. I'll just have to mute it or play my own music in there. But yeah, there's some interesting things. So I might actually end up playing a couple today as we're reading if I feel like it's like appropriate for what we're reading. Um, so yeah, okay, let's do this. I think we left off. You know what I realized? If I would have just read my part, we would have started fresh at 20 years old, but I didn't. So now we're like it's like the last page but at 19, but it's okay. The last reading, I mean.
What what page are we on?
86.
86, and it's your turn or mine?
Yes, it's my turn. We left off right before 20, like right
Wait.
before the 20 years old. Um, yeah, you were the last to read. Okay. All right.
87 then, right?
Yeah, I
No.
guess it would be 80. Yeah, it's
Okay.
page
It makes me
87.
nervous
Sorry.
because I'm looking if it's not.
I think what happened, I was only like scrolled like halfway up.
Is it like
Yeah.
my father drove up to?
Yes. Yep.
Okay. Phew. All right. That would have sucked. That would have sucked.
Okay, let me get this all add to stream. All right, guys. Is that big enough? I know. I feel like my mouth. Hold on, I got to get some water real quick.
I don't know. I feel like I have to do that each time.
Hmm. No, I'm sure
Wow.
like people do it. It must do something because you see like actors or
Yeah,
like
yeah. That's why I'm
musicians.
doing it, because it's like just a thing you see.
Okay, you guys ready? Here we go. My father drove up to Santa Barbara to meet me a few days later. The two of us went to have lunch at a restaurant in the Camino Real Marketplace, an area that I often frequented. When we sat down at our table, I saw a young couple sitting a few tables down the row. A sight of them enraged me to no end, especially because it was a dark skinned Mexican guy dating a hot blonde white girl. I regarded it as a great insult to my dignity. I could How could an inferior Mexican guy be able to date a white blonde girl while I was still suffering as a lonely virgin? I was ashamed to be in such an inferior position in front of my father. When I saw the two of them kissing, I could barely contain my rage. I stood up in anger and I was about to walk up to them and pour my glass of soda all over their heads. I probably would have if father wasn't there. I was seething with envious rage, and my father was there to watch it all. It was so humiliating. I wasn't the son I wanted to present to my father. I should be the one with the hot blonde girl, making my father proud. Instead, my father had to watch me suffer in a pathetic position. Life is so cruel to me. When I said my farewell to father before he drove home, I felt absolutely miserable. I then went back to my room and sulked for hours. Another incident happened on the following day, near the same location. I went to the Starbucks at the Camino Real Marketplace by myself, like I usually did every morning. I ordered my coffee and sat down on one of their chairs to relax. A few moments later, when I looked up from my drink, I saw a young couple standing in line. The two of them were kissing passionately. The boy looked like an obnoxious punk. He was tall and wore baggy pants. The girl was a pretty blonde. They looked like they were in the throes of passionate sexual attraction to each other, rubbing their bodies together and tongue kissing in front of everyone. I was absolutely livid with envious hatred. When they left the store, I followed them to their car and splashed my coffee all over them. The boy yelled at me and I quickly ran away in fear. I was panicking as I got into my car and drove off, shaken with rage fueled excitement. I drove all the way to the Vons at the Fairway Plaza and spent 3 hours in my car trying to contain my tumultuous emotions. I had never struck back at my enemies before, and I felt a sense of spiteful gratification for doing so. I hated them so much. Even though I splashed them with my coffee, he was still the winner. He was going home to have passionate heavenly sex with his beautiful girlfriend, and I was going home to my lonely room to sleep alone in my lonely bed. I had never felt so miserable and mistreated in my life. I cursed the world for condemning me to such suffering. I wanted to do horrible things to that couple. I wanted to inflict pain on all young couples. It was around this point in my life that I realized I was capable of doing such things. I would happily do such things. I was capable of killing them, and I wanted to. I wanted to kill them slowly, to strip the skins off their flesh. They deserve it. The males deserve it for taking the females away from me, and the females deserve it for choosing those males instead of me. Ever since I was 17, I often fantasized about becoming powerful and inflicting suffering upon everyone who has wronged me in the past, but I never thought I would actually do it. At this point, after going through so much suffering and injustice, all of my innocence had been swept away. The world had been cruel to me, and it molded me to become strong enough to actually have the capability of returning that cruelness to the world. I had never been a violent person in nature, but after building up so much hatred over the years, I realized that I wouldn't hesitate to kill or even torture my hated enemies if I was given the opportunity. I spent the next 5 days in my room trying to forget about the horrific experiences I had to go through. But even in my room, I couldn't escape from being reminded of my worthlessness. Every time I looked out my window to the courtyard, I saw young people socializing. Obnoxious drunk boys were chatting up pretty girls, and I wondered with great panic if they would be having sex together in the night. I often fantasized about barging into their rooms while they had sex and slashing them to death with my knife. Before I knew it, it was July 12th, and the countdown on my internet homepage was up. The new song of Ice and Fire book, A Dance with Dragons, was released. I emailed my mother to order me the book from Amazon. The countdown was ultimately over, and I had nothing to show for it. I was still a virgin, even after a month of living in town full of college kids who had sex all the time. I realized that I had only 12 more days as a teenager. I was going to turn 20 very soon. One of my hopes was to at least lose my virginity before my time as a teenager was over. Being a virgin at that age of 20 would make me feel very defeated. I made a bid to do everything I could to lose my virginity in those few remaining days I had. With a tremendous amount of panic, I wondered what I could possibly do. The only thing I could think of was to go out to the common areas of Isla Vista as much as possible. I had to put myself out there, even if it only increased my chances of having sex by 1%. 1% was still better than zero. For those crucial 12 days I had left as a teenager, I walked over to the center of Isla Vista every day and sat at one of the tables outside Domino's Pizza, hoping hoping against hope that a girl would come up and talk to me. Why wouldn't they? I look good enough, didn't I? Or did I not look good enough? Such thoughts flew through my head in frantic waves. For dinner, I always walked over to the healthy restaurant called Silver Greens. There were always hot girls there, but none of them deigned to even look at me. On every one of those on every one of those nights, I walked home alone with my head down in defeat. I made no progress in school either. My geography class had no pretty girls in it, so I had no hope there. I spent a lot of time sitting in the cafeteria area, but all the beautiful girls I saw intimidated me too much. One time, as I was walking across the huge bridge that connected the two campuses, I passed by a girl I thought was pretty, and I said hi as we neared each other. She kept on walking and didn't even have the grace to respond to me. How dare she? That foul bitch. I felt so humiliated that I went to one of the school bathrooms, locked myself in a toilet stall, and cried for an hour. Um, one of my very last days as a teenager, I was sitting at my usual place at the food court outside Domino's. I saw a sight that shattered my heart to pieces. A tall, blonde, jock type guy walked into one of the restaurants, and at his side was one of the sexiest girls I had ever seen. She too was tall and blonde. They were both taller than me, and they kissed each other passionately. They made me feel so inferior and worthless and small. I glared at them with intense hatred as I sat by myself in my lonely misery. I can never have a girl like that. The sight was burned into my memory, and it caused a scar that will haunt me forever. When they walked away, I followed them in my car for a few minutes, and when they entered a less inhabited area, I opened my window and splashed my iced tea all over them. It was all I could do at that time, but at least it was something. At least I made some effort to fight back against the injustice. I felt sick with hatred that night. The hatred boiled inside me with burning vitriol. My summer session ended with no positive effect on my life. After I completed my final exam, on which I received a grade of B, I drove back to my hometown feeling defeated. Shortly after, my 20th birthday finally came. Sumaya and Jazz were away in Morocco for the summer. So father met up with me, my mother, and my sister at an upscale restaurant in Encino. My parents didn't show any concern for how miserable I felt about being a 20-year-old virgin. They treated it as if it was any normal birthday. They didn't seem to understand the gravity of the situation, which annoyed me immensely. The restaurant had an all you can eat buffet system, and I greatly stuffed myself that night. Delicious food was the only vice I was able to enjoy. Since I was deprived of sex, I had a very fast metabolism, so I could eat as much as I wanted without getting fat. I suppose that was one advantage in my rather disadvantageous life. When I got back to my mother's apartment, she let me have a bottle of wine, and I truly drank my fill. Everything's better with some wine in the belly. I spent the rest of the night pondering over what was in store for me at that point in life. I was no longer a teenager, and I'll never be able to experience having sex as a teenager. My teenage years were completely denied to me by the cruelness of women. The only way I could make up for it was if I could have an extraordinary sex life in my 20s. I would have to have a profoundly amazed decade in my 20s to compensate for all the misery I experienced in my teens. If I fail to do that, then I have nothing to live for. Sadly, I will only experience the opposite in my early 20s, and it would destroy me.
20 years old. I stayed in my hometown for a week. One of my birthday presents was a gift card to Nordstrom. I spent it on a couple of new polo shirts that made me feel a little more confident. Buying new clothes would always give me a temporary boost of confidence, and I practiced it as if it was a drug. Before I left for Santa Barbara, I reunited with Philip and Addison after a very long period of not seeing them. The three of us met up at the Calabasas Commons, and then we went in Philip's car to Malibu for a few adventures. We ended up settling down at Starbucks and had a few insightful conversations. Addison had changed and matured tremendously, and he was no longer associating with the popular Malibu high school kids. This didn't change my resentment towards him, and I kept confronting him the whole time about the insulting way he treated me over a year ago. After a lot of debating, we agreed to resolve our conflict with each other. This didn't mean I forgot all the slights he dealt to me in the past, however. I never forget. I never forgive. One day I'll show him how superior I am. Whew. On the day after I saw Philip and Addison, I went over to James's house. I hadn't been there for ages, and the two of us relived our traditional walks around the Palisades town center just like the old times. It felt strange and nostalgic to experience it after so long, especially after going through so many changes in Santa Barbara. I told James about my turmoil of being a 20-year-old virgin and my desperate hopes that things will get better once I start my autumn semester at my new college. I talked about all the beautiful blonde girls I saw walking around my college and my deep wish that I will have one day have one, he's slipping, as a girlfriend. James sympathized with me greatly, for he was also going through similar troubles in life. He seemed glad that I was finally taking some steps to bring changes to my life. I drove back to Santa Barbara in a slightly better mood than I was in when I left it. I had a month until the new semester started, and I could use that time to prepare and recuperate. My new housemates were meant to move into the second bedroom of my apartment on August 5th. I had an anxious feeling of anticipation for what they will be like. August 5th came quickly, and I prepared myself to be in a pleasant mood to meet them. Their names were Ryan and Angel, and to my dismay, they were of Hispanic race. In addition, the two of them were already friends with each other, which meant that they could possibly gang up against me if any conflicts were to arise. They also seemed like rowdy, low-class types. My first impression of them soured me, but I tried to be pleasant and not show it. The two of them acted cordial to me on the first day, but after observing them for a bit, I had a bad feeling that they would be trouble to live with. And they were to be my housemates for a whole year. When I was alone in my room, I panicked to myself at how dire a situation this was. This was extremely disappointing. I was hoping I would get decent, mature, clean-cut housemates. Instead, I got low-class scum. On the second day, they started inviting their equally rowdy friends into my apartment, and we exchanged more small talk. To my indignant surprise, they asked me the question I always dreaded answering. Are you a virgin? I admitted that I was a virgin. I always admitted the truth about this. It was my life struggle, and I couldn't lie about such a thing. They then had the audacity to tell me that they lost their virginity long ago, bragging about all the girls they had slept with. I particularly hated Angel because of his ugly pig face. How could such an ugly animal have had sexual experiences with girls, and yet I haven't? What was wrong with this world? I got so angry that I went to my room and punched the wall. They heard me and started laughing. It was almost a repeat of what I experienced with that black boy named Chance in the old apartment, except this time it was worse because these were my housemates for the year. On the day after, I almost got into a physical fight with Angel. The ugly pig kept acting as if girls thought he was more attractive than me. Ha! I am a beautiful, magnificent gentleman, and he is a low-class, pig-faced thug. I had enough of his cocksure attitude, and I started to call him exactly what he was. I tried to insult him as much as I could, telling him how superior I am to him, and saying that he was low class. He tried to attack me, but Ryan, being the more mellow of the two, held him back. A pity, I was itching for the chance to hurt that obnoxious little animal, though I suppose it was for the best. My life was too important to risk doing anything rash. In a panic, I immediately called my mother as soon as I could, and I told her of the dire situation. There was no way I could live with these two imbeciles for the whole college year. They already ruined my weekend. My mother agreed that I needed to get out of there, so I went to the leasing office and explained to the manager everything that happened. He told me that there was another room available for me to transfer to, but it would cost $100 more a month because it was a larger two-bedroom unit, and I would only be sharing it with one housemate who would occupy the other room. I called my mother and she gave me permission to go through with it. I signed the new lease, arranging to transfer when the room became available in September. I would have to bear living with them for the rest of the month until then. To help get through the month, my mother let me come home every weekend until I was able to transfer to the new apartment. I would only stay in Santa Barbara during the weekends, but on those weekdays, or during the weekdays, but on those weekdays, Angel and Ryan went out of their way to make my life a living hell. Every time they went out, they kept yelling to me how they're going how they're going to sleep with hot girls that night. I knew they were just lying to make me jealous. They always made fun of me for being a virgin. At night, they frequently made noise to wake me up. I was literally being bullied, and it was truly horrific. I wanted to kill them both. But of course, I was smart enough to not go through with that desire. All I could do was remember every single insult so that I could get revenge in a more efficient way in the future. That is who I am. I don't act stupidly or rashly. I remember every insult, and I wait until the time is right to strike. When that time comes, I will crush all of my enemies in the most devastating and catastrophic way possible, and the results will be beautiful. On one of the weekends in which I went home during August, my mother moved out of the Versailles apartment complex, I think, and moved into the Summit townhomes near Warner Center. It was an abrupt decision to move there. I helped her pack everything and watched as the movers transported all of our belongings to the new place. The Summit was much nicer looking than her old apartment. I'll say that for it. It was a townhome with an upstairs room that I would occupy whenever I visit home. I was glad that she moved to a better place, but I would have much rather she got married to a wealthy man and moved into his mansion. Even though she was no longer seeing Jack, she dated other men of high class. She had a special way of charming them. I continued to pester her to get married so that I can be part of an upper class family and enjoy all the benefits that would come with that, but she always refused, claiming that she never wants to get married due to her unpleasant experiences with my father. I told her that she should suffer through any negative aspects of marriage just for my sake because it would completely save my life, but she still refused.
Okay. I went over to James's house during my visit home. The two of us chatted online a lot, and when I told him that I was in town, he seemed eager to see me. I was eager to see him too, as he was my closest friend and I had a lot to talk to him about. I drove up to Panga Canyon to his house, not knowing that it will be the last time I ever visit him. The two of us did what we usually do. We walked out to the Palisades Bluffs where we discussed our hopes and dreams. We then went to the Palisades Town Center to have dinner. This time we chose to eat at Panda Express. While we were eating, some high school kids walked in. James saw them first, and right when he saw them, he said the words, "We're screwed." James knew I would have the trouble. James knew I would have trouble with them. They were popular boys who had a flock of pretty girls with them. One of them sat down with two of the girls, putting his leg up on another chair with a cocky smirk on his face. I was livid with rage, and I wanted to pour my drink all over his head. James knew exactly what I was planning to do. We had been through similar incidents before. He made a lot of effort to try to dissuade me from acting on my anger, pointing out that there was a security guard nearby. I did the only other thing I could do. I packed up my dinner and left the restaurant, fleeing in defeat and shame. James soon followed, and we decided to finish our meal at his house. A dark and ominous aura clouded over our friendship that day. When the two of us got back to James's house, I was still seething with rage. I didn't understand why James wasn't angry like me. The sight that we just witnessed was horrible to watch. To see another male be successful with females is torture for males like us who have no success with females. I was so angry that I told James of all of the acts of revenge I wanted to exact on those popular boys. I told him my desire to flay them alive, to strip the skins off their flesh and make them scream in agony as punishment for living a better life than me. Man. Oh, James became deeply disturbed by my anger. I wish that he wasn't disturbed. I wish that he could be a friend that felt the same way about the world that I did. But he wasn't that kind of person. He was a weakling. Once I had calmed down, the two of us had a long conversation in his room, and I ended up crying in front of him as I explained how hopeless I felt about life. Soon after that, I left his house never to return there again. He will never invite me over after that incident, and our friendship will slowly fade to dust. During the last few days that I had to endure living with those barbaric housemates, I often walked out to Isla Vista hoping that I could meet a girl and take her home with me. I wanted to prove to them all that girls liked me, to see the look on their faces when they see a girl by my side. But of course, I had nothing to prove because girls didn't like me. Every time I tried to go out and meet a girl, I ended up walking home alone in anger. On one of these n on one of these nights, I crossed paths with a boy who was walking with 2 pretty girls. I got so envious that I cursed at him, and then I followed them for a few minutes. They just laughed at me, and one of the girls kissed the boy on the lips. I'm assuming she was his girlfriend. That was one of the worst experiences of torture from girls that I've had to endure, and it will be a scar in my memory forever to remind me that girls think I'm unworthy compared to other boys. I ran home with tears pouring down my cheeks, hoping that my horrible housemates wouldn't be there to witness my shame. I tried to spark a positive attitude on the first day of my autumn semester at Santa Barbara City College. I was registered for 3 classes: history, astronomy, and math. My history and astronomy classes were in the morning, and my math class was late in the afternoon. So on school days, I had to spend the entire day at the college. I figured this would be beneficial because it would keep me out of my room and in a place where possible opportunities might come my way. I had to wait a couple of hours before my math class started, and I spent those hours roaming around the college, or sitting in the library, looking at all the hot girls and wishing I could have one as a girlfriend. I was like a starving man surrounded by a feast that I was prohibited to eat. All of my classes left me feeling hopeless and depressed. Not only was I unable to meet any girls, and there were a lot of pretty ones, but I also had a hard time making any friends. I've always had a hard time making friends. I'm not the type of person that can fit in with a group of outgoing people. The last time I did such a thing was when I was 12. I had to make friends. Having a social circle will provide me with more opportunities to meet girls, and it was the only way to get invited to all those exciting college parties. But no one even wanted to be my friend. I actually tried to initiate small talk with guys who sat next to me, but it never went far. I had a horrible feeling that I was in for a miserable time in Santa Barbara. I did make one friend through spending time in my apartment's courtyard. This friend's name was Chan. He was a foreign student from China. Andy shared the same eagerness as I did to experience college life in Isla Vista to the fullest. And unlike most people my age, I found him to have some intelligence and substance. The two of us walked out to Del Playa Street in Isla Vista a few times, the place where all the parties happen, but nothing ever came of it. I felt like an outcast, even though I had a friend with me, and I still felt inferior compared to all of those guys who walked around with beautiful girls. On September 5th, I was finally able to move into my new permanent apartment unit. I felt relieved that I would never have to deal with the likes of Ryan and Angel ever again, though I did worry that I will eventually run into them again because my new unit was still in the same apartment complex. Once I was given the keys, I quickly transported all of my belongings to the new place. I was supposed to have only one housemate who would live in the other room of the unit, but he hadn't moved in yet. I had no idea who my new housemate would be, but I was told that he was an older student who attended the university. That knowledge made me feel assured that he would be tolerable to live with. He was set to arrive in 2 weeks, so I had the place to myself until then. I unpacked all of my things and set up my new room. Once I was done, I looked at it and thought to myself, this was it. This was my new living place in the college town of Isla Vista, and if I could finally have the life I wanted, then this may well be the room where I lose my virginity. How wrong was how wrong I was. It would only be another room where I suffer miserable loneliness. No girl will ever step foot in it. Santa Barbara was not going well for me. I was already months into my 20th year and I had nothing to show for it. As I spent the first weeks of September in my new room all alone, I fully realized how much I was failing at life. Santa Barbara was supposed to be a place of hope, a place where I could start a new, happy life. I couldn't believe how wrong everything was turning out. Instead of finally getting a chance to have a life of sex and love like other people did, I only experienced worse rejection and humiliation than I had ever experienced before. This was unbelievable and unforgivable. If humanity continued to insult me with such cruelty, then there was no hope for happiness in my life. At Santa Barbara City College, I had exactly the same experience that I had at Moore Park. I had to watch beautiful young people enjoying their lives together as I languished in loneliness and despair because no one accepted me. I dropped my math class. I just couldn't bear having to be at that college all day long, sitting in the library watching couples kiss each other. I retained my 2 morning classes only because there was still some small inkling of desperate home inside me.
My usual day went as follows. I woke up alone in my bed with no girl beside me and did a few minutes of exercise before I showered and got ready for college. Then I drove to Starbucks to have my morning latte and felt envious whenever I saw a young couple there. I would then attend my 2 classes where no one said a word to me, having to endure the torment of watching other guys talk to girls I liked. And then I would go home alone, open the door to my lonely room, and feel absolutely miserable. The loneliness was suffocating. I could barely breathe. If only one pretty girl had at least given me the chance and tried to get to know me, everything would have turned out differently. But girls continued to treat me with disdain. The loneliness was torturing me so intensely that I even started up my WoW account and played the game constantly for the month of September. James still played WoW, and the two of us played together online for a few days, but he treated me very coldly the whole time. I could tell that the kind of friendship we had for so many years no longer existed. That last incident in the Palisades stabbed our friendship deeply, and it was in the process of bleeding away. At the time, I felt offended by his attitude towards me, so I called him out on it. This sparked a long argument between us that resulted in James refusing to talk to me online anymore. A few days after that, I deactivated my account again. My new housemate arrived in the middle of September. His name was Spencer Horowitz, a short, chubby UCSB student who was about a year older than me. He seemed like a friendly, mature sort of person, definitely a pleasant contrast from the housemates I had to suffer through in the previous months. I didn't expect to have any problems with him. However, I was disappointed due to the fact that I was hoping my new housemate would become someone I could relate to, someone who could be my friend and help me integrate with the social life in Santa Barbara. I didn't see Spencer as the type of person I would become friends with. We could get along, but we had nothing in common. In addition, I was a bit shocked when Spencer told me that he used to have a girlfriend. It was a casual comment that came out of a conversation we had. I didn't understand how a chubby and unattractive guy like Spencer would have been able to get a girlfriend. Well, I've never had the chance to. The guy was 3 inches shorter than me, and even I'm considered short for my age. I could not fathom how such a thing was possible, and I concluded to myself that his former girlfriend of his that he mentioned must have been just as unattractive as he was. There was no need for me to be jealous. After a few weeks of living with him, I realized I had a psychological problem with his presence in my apartment. Even though there was no trouble between us, I hated having someone constantly in my vicinity to judge how pathetic my life was. I could hide the details of my lonely celibate life from the rest of the world. Excuse me. But I could not hide it from Spencer. The fact that I never had any girls over to my room was clear enough that I was an undesirable outcast, and I hated it when people knew this about me and judged me for it. Spencer was there to witness it all, and I would eventually come to hate him just because of that. During the months of October and November, I made another desperate bid to improve my social life as best I could. I failed in making any friends in my 2 college classes, and I didn't have any interactions with girls at my school. I was an invisible ghost, just like I had always been. I continued to see Andy, the one friend that I made. We often met up to have dinner at a restaurant somewhere. He soon introduced me to a few friends of his. One of them was named Stan, a European from Holland whom I particularly got along with. I enjoyed having conversations with Stan about a wide variety of subjects, including politics, history, business, and architecture. I wisely refrained from revealing any of my political views, of which disturbed most people. During the month of October, I went out with Andy, Stan, and some of their friends quite often. We did things like walk around State Street or Isla Vista, or went to the movie theaters together. I soon found that even having these few acquaintances to hang out with didn't make me feel any better. I still felt inferior whenever I saw other guys walking with beautiful girls. At the movie theaters, I felt just as pathetic about walking in there with a group of friends as I did years ago when I went to the movies with my parents. It was that pathetic feeling of not having a hot girlfriend on my arm while some other boys in the theater did. What I truly wanted, what I truly needed, was a girlfriend. I needed a girl's love. I needed to feel worthy as a male. For so long I have felt worthless, and it's all girls' fault. No girl wanted to be my girlfriend. Halloween weekend in the college town of Isla Vista is a renowned event. Young people pour in from all over the country to attend the raucous, is that how you pronounce that? Parties there. My experience during this weekend is just what one would have expected it to be, a miserable disaster. When I was a kid, I used to love Halloween. It was a holiday full of fun and excitement. It was a holiday of fun and excitement where I went trick-or-treating, going from house to house collecting candy with my friends and family. For young adults, Halloween is a very different sort of holiday, of which one is supposed to dress up in sexually explicit costumes, attend wild drinking parties, and have sexual experiences with girls. For other young people who are able to do such things, Halloween must be a blast, but I am unable to do such things. I wasn't invited to any party, and girls don't want to have sex with me. As a teenager and a young adult, Halloween has been a holiday of torment and depression because of this. In Isla Vista, this was greatly intensified. I tried my best to put myself out there on Halloween weekend. I made many laps around Isla Vista, trying to bolster up the courage to talk to a girl or walk into a party, but I just couldn't. I knew they would all reject me. What I saw during those walks shook me to the very core. Girls dressed up in extremely revealing outfits, and the sight of them filled my sex-starved self with hunger and desire that I knew I could never quench. On the last night of the Halloween weekend, I went out there with Andy and Stan and a few others. It made absolutely no difference. We didn't get into any parties and just walked around the streets like losers. Being friends with them wasn't benefiting me at all. If only I had a beautiful girlfriend to experience such an event with, I would have even dressed up in a costume with her. It would have been so blissful and euphoric to walk around in all of that excitement with a beautiful girl on my arm, to attend every single party because anyone would admit a beautiful girl into it, to make passionate love to her in my room at the end of the night, to snuggle next to her sexy, warm body as we drift off to sleep together. That is the life I should have lived. So many other guys are able to experience that, and just thinking about it filled me with extreme agony. Life is not fair. In November, my brief friendship with Andy, Stan, and their group faded away. I often saw on Facebook that they did things together without even inviting me, which is the same thing I've had to experience with other groups of friends that I've had in the past. I was always an outcast, even among people I knew. I grew tired of their lack of consideration for me, so I stopped calling them. They weren't even popular anyway, and I wasn't benefiting at all from their friendship. I still continued to meet with Andy at restaurants on occasion, however. Every day that I spent at my college, the more inferior and invisible I felt. I felt like an inferior mouse whenever I saw guys walking with beautiful girls. I hated having to endure it, but I had already worked so hard on my 2 classes that I couldn't just quit then. The only way that I could gain a boost to my self-esteem was to buy better-looking clothes. My mother gave me a few more gift cards to Nordstrom, and I spent them on $200 designer jeans. When I wore these to school, I saw that I was wearing better jeans than most of the other guys, and that made me have a slightly higher sense of self-worth. I also bought a few more shirts and a pair of new Hugo Boss sneakers.
Oh, sorry. Okay, I gotta take this comment down so it doesn't stay up. Okay. Um, Doing this started a new obsession for me. I became more and more obsessed with my appearance because my mother, father, and grandmother constantly paid me extra money that now that I was living in Santa Barbara. Hold on, I gotta take a sip of water real quick. I forgot to. Okay. I had saved up enough to indulge in this obsession, familiarizing myself with all of the top designer brands. I bought new clothes every time I visited my hometown. My favorite brands were Hugo Boss and Armani. I always stopped by at the Camarillo shopping center on my way back to Santa Barbara. I loved it there. They had a store for almost every brand. One time I was shopping at the Calvin Klein store in Camarillo. I saw such a sexy looking blonde girl with perfectly tan skin. She looked so beautiful and sexy that I had an erection instantly. Oh, the heavenly things I wanted to do to her. And then I saw her hunk of a boyfriend. My entire being was filled with anguish and despair. I can only imagine how amazing and pleasurable that guy's life was. They were older than me, probably mid-20s, and I thought with desperate hope that when I'm that man's age, I would be worthy enough to have such a girlfriend by my side, to shop with her at that same shopping mall in heavenly bliss. My life was my life was a my life was a life of starvation and yearning. I visited home for Thanksgiving and went with my mother to Rob Lemelson's house for a small Thanksgiving get together. James was there, and the last time I spoke to him since then was when we had our bitter argument online. The one person who has been my friend through all of my hardship didn't even want to speak to me during Thanksgiving. I tried to ask him why he was overreacting about an argument we had 2 months previously, but he just glared at me coldly and told me to keep my proximity. I was highly offended. After a few hours, the Thanksgiving feast was served. To my profound annoyance, Julian Ritzbar and his equally obnoxious older brother Leon Ritzbar also came for the dinner. I remember the extreme envy I felt for Julian months ago, and I tried to ignore them as much as possible, which proved to be difficult because they talk loudly all the time. I was seated next to James for the dinner, and after awkwardly sitting next to each other for a few moments, he decided to warm up to me again. As the two of us caught up with each other about our lives, a small inkling of our old friendship ignited like a weak flitter of flame in the candle. It was nice for a brief moment that it lasted. The two of us talked about our usual fantasy scenarios and joked about how stupid and obnoxious the Ritz Bar brothers were acting. On that same weekend that I went home, I got together with Philip and Addison. The three of us went out to a restaurant in LA, and then we headed to the Griffith Park Observatory, just like old times. The last time I was there with the two of them was on that horrible night when Addison told me that no girl will ever want to screw me. The words were still embedded in my mind, and going to Griffith Park reminded me of that night. The three of us took few pictures of us posing at various spots at the observatory, some of which were uploaded onto Facebook. And then we went to the Calabasas Commons to hang out at Barnes and Noble, where I had a few insightful conversations with Addison. Despite our past hostilities, I considered Addison to be one of the most interesting people I knew. I went back to Santa Barbara for a couple weeks to finish off my two classes. In my history class, I kept feeling weak with inferior, I can't even say that right now, as I watched this tall, handsome, blonde jock constantly sit and talk with two beautiful girls. There was no way that I couldn't watch it. They were in the middle of the class. I hated that class so much, and I decided to stop attending it until the final exam. Once I took the final exam, I felt glad to be done with those horrifically frustrating college classes. It was just as I had feared. My first actual semester at Santa Barbara City College was an absolute brutal failure. I didn't even have one girl's number in my cell phone. Was I going to be a virgin forever? I frantically wondered as I drove away from the school after taking my exams. I felt like my whole life was over. If I couldn't make it in such a beautiful and opportunistic place like Santa Barbara, then I was doomed to misery and dissatisfaction. I knew that I would rather die than suffer such a fate. And I knew that if it came to that, I would do everything I can to exact revenge before I die. I didn't want it to resort to that. Some part of me still clung to hope. I didn't want to give up so soon. As I made the long scenic drive back to my hometown for the holidays, I made a vow to give it all another try when I start my new semester in the spring, and to use the time I had during the winter break to prepare for it as much as I could. My mother told me that she had made plans for me, my sister, and her to go to England for a week. Upon hearing this, I said I didn't want to go. I felt so dissatisfied and defeated, and I didn't want to appear that way to my relatives in England. There was nothing about me that they could be proud of. I felt ashamed of having to face them the way I was. After some persuasion, I agreed to go. I figured that if anything, it would give me a respite from all this pain society has dealt to me, just like our old visits to Jack's beach house in Malibu. Before we left for England, we attended the annual Christmas party at the Lemelsons. I had recently bought a flashy new shirt from Armani Exchange that made me feel particularly fabulous. So I decided to wear it for the party. I loved admiring how awesome I looked in the mirror as I wore it. Wearing flashy new clothes made me feel like a new person. I found it to be a very efficient way to boost my confidence. When I entered the party, I felt gratified. When Sue Lemelson, Rob's ex-wife, complimented me on how good I looked. My mother pointed out that it was unusual for Sue to compliment anyone, so I must have made a good impression. James was at the party, of course. He didn't act outwardly cold toward me this time, but there was still a distance between us. During the course of the event, I had my fill of multiple glasses of wine as I casually chatted with James about my insights and life problems. We interacted as if we were still friends, but I could tell that the things were very different between us. The friendship that we had for so long was dying. When I said goodbye to him that night, it was the last time I ever saw him. After a quick Christmas celebration at Father's house, I took off for England with my mother and sister. We flew business class on Virgin Atlantic, and since they followed the laws of the UK, I was allowed to drink alcohol on the flight. I took delight in sipping the wine that was served while I enjoyed the relaxing journey. The last time I had been on an airplane since then was the disastrous trip to Morocco when I was 17, and this made for a pleasant contrast. When we landed in England, I felt the sense of wonder that came with being in another country. I hadn't been to my home country of England for almost a decade, and I couldn't believe I was there once again. The decision to go on the trip came so quickly. We stayed at a very nice hotel in the town of Colchester, near where my relatives on my mother's side live, including my grandma, Amma. After we unpacked all of our belongings, we went to their house for dinner. I hadn't seen those relatives since our trip to Malaysia. It felt peculiar to see them all again. They were exactly the same as I remembered. It was very heartwarming to see that Grandma Amma had baked her delicious peanut cookies that I loved so much as a child. She had them ready and waiting for me. We visited them again on Christmas Day. They prepared an exquisite lunch, and afterward, we exchanged our gifts. I got a bit drunk on that day, as it was the only thing I could do to pass the time. I tried to relax and forgot about all the pain I had experienced in Santa Barbara. I wish there was something I could talk to my relatives about that would make them proud, but there was nothing interesting or impressive about my life to talk about. I wish I could show my grandma that I was thriving in Santa Barbara, that I had a girlfriend and I was enjoying a full and healthy life. But no, that is something I was never able to do. I felt so ashamed of myself.
My grandma, Alma, gave me a gift of great value. After we exchanged all of the presents with the relatives, Alma presented me with a 22-carat golden necklace. It was very extravagant, and it had been in her possession for a long time. Now it was mine. I wore it instantly and took a great liking to it. From then on, I would wear it every waking moment. I could have sold it for well over $1,000, but I never did. It was special to me. My favorite part of the trip was the breakfasts at the hotel. The hotel we stayed at was quite luxurious, even by my standards. And the breakfasts, they were absolutely delicious. Every morning there was a buffet full of delectable choices, such as crispy pork sausage, croissants, bacon, ham, roast potatoes, all kinds of fruit, and much more. On every one of those mornings, I stuffed myself like there was no tomorrow. I was deprived of sex all my life, so the only vice that I could derive a sense of pleasure from was eating delicious food. I took full advantage of that on this trip. My high metabolism prevented me from getting fat from it. Before the trip was over, we all went on a tour through London. We were supposed to visit Grandma Jinx in Smarden on that same day, but Grandma Jinx was in France at the time. We rented a comfortable Mercedes van that could fit 8 people and made a long drive through the English countryside to the capital city of London. I didn't remember much of the city from my previous visits, so it was kind of like a new experience for me. I found the city to be very ugly in most areas, but in contrast, there were some attractive parts that were awash with beautiful architecture and a cultural atmosphere. Once we parked our van and set out on foot, and sometimes took the underground subway, once we parked our van, we set out on foot and sometimes took the underground subway to explore all of the main attractions of the city. It was cold, dreadfully cold, but I bore it without much concern. Walking through the streets of London at night, especially in Trafalgar Square and the area around Harrods, was truly breathtaking, or it would have been, there we go, if I had a beautiful girlfriend by my side to experience it with me. It was the sort of place that one would go with a girlfriend if I had, and I had none. I saw other men being able to experience it with their girlfriends, and the sight soured my whole experience. When we had dinner at a restaurant, I scoffed a big meal and imbibed 2 glasses of wine to make myself feel better during the rest of our tour. My favorite part was walking through the store Harrods. Harrods is a gigantic, renowned luxury designer clothing store. Every facet of it exuded beauty and excessive opulence. It was my type of place. I wished I was rich enough to buy anything I wanted at the store. There were so many choices of fabulous clothing, but alas, I had to settle with buying only one Giorgio Armani shirt. Aw. If my mother had been wise enough to marry one of those wealthy men she dated, perhaps then I would have been rich enough. Such a pity. At the end of the night of our London tour, I felt cold and miserable. Walking through that exciting cultural city made me realize that the world was full of wonders to explore. But if I had to do it alone while other men were able to do it with their girlfriends, then what was the point? My life was so mundane and wasteful compared to the lives all other men lived. They were in heaven and I was in hell. When we took off on the airplane for the journey home, I wondered how my life would have turned out if we never moved to the United States. I saw a lot of beautiful blonde girls in England, just like there were in California. Would I have lived a completely different type of life? Would I have been able to have a girlfriend in England? Would girls in England have been more accepting of a guy like me? Those are questions I will never know the answer to. I spent a few hours recovering from jet lag after we arrived home. On the day after that, it was New Year's Eve. I didn't want a repeat of the previous New Year's when I spent them alone and miserable in my room, so I decided to go with my father and Sumaya to a party at Aunt Jay Twins' house. My father was still friends with them despite, I think that's a typo. Anyway, my father was still friends with them despite not being friends with the Bubenheims anymore. I wanted to wear something new for the party in order to boost my sense of self-confidence, so I went to Nordstrom and bought a new flashy Hugo Boss shirt decorated with different hues of blue. I didn't have dinner before the party because I expected dinner to be served there. When we got there, I saw that they didn't offer dinner, only a few party snacks, but there was lots and lots of wine. I heard from Aunt Jay. Is that how you pronounce that?
I don't know, but it was earlier too, so that's how they spell it. I have no idea how to pronounce it though.
Aunt
You're
Jay.
doing good. I think that's right.
Aunt Jay. Okay.
Anche. Yeah.
Aunt Jay.
Anche.
That that Vincent was in town, but he was attending a party at Leo Bubenheim's house with all of Leo's popular teenage friends. The mere mention of Leo put me in a bad mood. I couldn't believe that Vincent, too, was now experiencing the pleasures of partying with young people, while I sat all alone at the adults' party, sipping my wine in lonely depression. I should be partying with my own friends, with my own girlfriends, but I had none. After I had already gotten quite drunk from having so much wine on an empty stomach, I overheard Aunt Jay talking to her friend about how Vincent had a beautiful girlfriend. She was so proud of her son. That is something my mother was never able to tell her friends about me. I had never had a girlfriend in my whole life. I remember when Vincent used to be a little 9-year-old boy while I was 13. He used to look up to me and he always watched me play my online games on father's laptop. Now he was 16 and I was 20. He had the pleasure of having a girlfriend, while I've never had one. I was 4 years older than him, but he surpassed me. The envy, rage, and feeling of inferiority I felt almost made me explode with rage right there at the party. But I instead went to the bathroom and vented to myself in the mirror of how much I hate Vincent and wanted to kill him. I drank a lot more wine that night, pouring myself glass after glass. By the time Vincent arrived after his party at Leo's, I greeted him with drunken contempt and drank even more wine. I drank too much. On the next morning, I thanked the heavens that at the end of the party I had the sense to go to the bathroom to vomit instead of vomiting in front of everyone. That would have been extremely embarrassing. I spent a week at my mother's house before I went back to Santa Barbara to give my life there another try. During this week, I once again met up with Philip and Addison. This outing was much longer than the last. I decided to wear the same Hugo Boss shirt that I wore for New Year's. First, we went on a hike up to the Hollywood sign and watched the glorious sunset. Afterwards, we visited the Getty Museum to admire the brilliant scenery and architecture. While there, I overheard Philip telling Addison that some girls were checking him out. Feeling jealous, I asked Philip if any of those girls checked me out, and he had the audacity to say no, none of them did. I felt so heartbroken that I left the two of them and cried to myself, ruining my whole experience at the museum. How could girls check out Addison but not me? I asked myself repeatedly as I tried to hide my tears from people who walked by me. I walked out to the edge of the grand entrance of the museum, looking out at the city lights of Los Angeles as well as the stars above. In that moment, I fell into a sort of despair-ridden trance, contemplating my reason for existing in this universe and what was in store for my future. It was a very ominous and surreal experience. I calmed down when we left the museum and acted cordial to both of them. I didn't want to spoil the night with my emotional problems. We toured around Hollywood for a bit, and while there, I saw lots of young people out and about with their attractive cliques of friends. The sight enraged me for the rest of the night. We decided to have dinner at a restaurant on Sunset Boulevard. At the restaurant, there were three hot model-like girls who sat a few tables down from us. Their bodies looked so sexy and tantalizing that Philip had to go to the bathroom to masturbate. I was itching to do the exact same thing, but I didn't want to look like a fool in front of Addison. When I got home, I began to cry because of all the emotions I experienced that night. My mother heard me and showed some concern, as she always did. She was used to me crying a lot, but she never understood why I was so miserable. I always had to explain it to her that I was a lonely, miserable, unwanted virgin who women treated with disdain, but she could never grasp how severe this was to me. After all, how could she? She was a woman herself.
I arrived back in Santa Barbara with a renewed, carefully constructed sense of confidence, especially because of the new collection of designer clothes I had bought over winter break. I tried to adopt a sophisticated and suave persona and made my accent sound more eloquent. I did this out of the hope that girls would find something attractive about it. It was the only persona that truly fit me. I was incapable of being an outgoing, boisterous jock, and I didn't want to be one. I was disgusted by such people, and I was disgusted at how girls were attracted to such filth. I wanted them to be attracted to me. That is how it should be, and I deserved it. During the few weeks I had before my first days of class, I couldn't really do anything to improve my social situation. I had a fear of going out to Isla Vista without any friends, and I was hoping to make those friends once college started. Because of this, I became depressed again from all of the loneliness. Even though Spencer was there, I felt completely and utterly alone, as the two of us never talked that much. So far, Spencer and I had gotten along quite well despite the fact that we never talked much. An incident happened at the end of January that changed all of this. I one day discovered that Spencer had a girl in this room. I couldn't believe it. The short, chubby guy was able to get a girl into his room before I did. I was so shocked and outraged that I waited outside his room until the girl left so I could get a glimpse of how she looked. To my relief, she wasn't that attractive. What made me even more angry is that Spencer gave me a smug look when I saw the girl, even though she was ugly. He had the nerve to feel like he was better than me just because he managed to get a girl over to the apartment before I did. I confronted him in the kitchen on that same night, telling him that he is foolish to feel proud about having an ugly whore in his room. This made him angry and offended, which is what I wanted. I wanted to offend him as punishment for his insolence. Man, this guy. Um, After the incident, the two of us became more and more hostile towards each other. In the beginning of February, my spring semester at Santa Barbara City College began. The classes I registered for were sociology, math, film studies, and English. My English class was an online class, but the other three were normal classes that I attended at the college. Sociology and math were on Tuesdays and Thursdays, and my film class was on Friday mornings. It made for a convenient setup. This was the last chance. I had already failed to change my life in the last semester. I must not fail again. I remember how hard it was to keep up those two classes in the autumn. The people in them made me feel so miserable. I knew that if the same thing happens in the coming semester, I would end up dropping all of my classes, and if that happened, all of my hope would be doomed. On the morning of the first day, I donned my fabulous Armani Exchange shirt and put on my new Gucci sunglasses that my mother gave me. I admired myself in the mirror for a few moments and began to feel a surge of enthusiasm. I wanted everyone to see me looking like that. I was hopeful that some girls would admire me. I said to myself that there was no way I could possibly have trouble getting girls now. I stopped at I stopped by at Starbucks to buy a latte and set off for my college with confidence that would appear as a superior gentleman to all of those students there. I was a superior gentleman. That was what I was born to be, and now it was time to show it to the world. It was a bright, sunny day as I ascended the familiar steps to the beautiful college campus of SBCC. I immediately went to the restroom to look at myself in the mirror a few times, just so that I can feel more assured of myself. Yes, I thought, I am the image of beauty and supremacy. I kept saying it over and over again as if it was a mantra. When I crossed the renowned bridge that connected the two halves of the campus, I felt as if everyone was admiring me. As I passed by groups of girls, I pretended to imagine that they had secretly adored and wanted me. After all, that was how it was meant to be. The more I walked around the campus, the more I tried to convince myself that that was the case. My first class was sociology, and I waited until everyone was seated before I walked in. I came in through the front entrance so that everyone could look at my fabulous self. To my utter dismay, I saw that no one turned their head to look at me at all. No girl tilted a head or lifted a pretty little eyebrow at my approach. After all that effort, I was still being treated like I was invisible. The sociology class flew by like a breeze, and my next class was math. In this class, I saw one of the prettiest girls I'd ever seen in my life. She was the only pretty girl in the class, and she was absolutely stunning. Of course, she didn't even notice me as I walked in. Her beauty was so intimidating that I couldn't bring myself to sit near her out of fear of her judgment. As the lecture proceeded, I couldn't help myself from constantly glancing at her, admiring every inch of her enticing body, from her silky blonde hair to her smooth, skinny, lightly tanned legs. The most beautiful thing about her was her face. It was a face that broke my heart the second I laid eyes on it. I wanted her with so much intensity, and I constantly fantasized about her during my masturbation sessions. This was the kind of girl who was always meant to be my girlfriend. This was the girl that I was meant to go through college in Santa Barbara with. My life would only have meaning if I could go through college with a girlfriend like her. As I made as I made my way back from school one day during the first week, I was stopped at a stoplight in Isla Vista when I saw two hot blonde girls waiting at this bus stop. I was dressed in one of my nice shirts, so I looked at them and smiled. They looked at me, but they didn't even deign to smile back. They just looked away as if I was a fool. As I drove away, I became very infuriated. It was such an insult. This was the way all girls treated me, and I was sick and tired of it. In a rage, I made a U turn, pulled up to their bus stop, and splashed my Starbucks latte all over them. I felt a feeling of spiteful satisfaction as I saw it stain their jeans. I then quickly speeded away before they could catch my license plate number. How dare those girls snub me in such a fashion? How dare they insult me so? I raged to myself repeatedly. They deserved the punishment I gave them. It was such a pity that my latte wasn't hot enough to burn them. Those girls deserve to be dumped in boiling water for the crime of not giving me the attention and adoration I so rightfully deserve. Wow. This incident soured my first week of college, but for the sake of all of my hopes and dreams, I tried to forget about it. For the month of February, I continued with the trend of attending my college classes and tried to make the most of it. With each passing day, my confidence about how I appeared to everyone started to wane. I still didn't make any friends, and I still didn't talk to any girls. By the end of the month, I began to question what I was doing so wrong. I saw obnoxious slobs who dressed in basketball shorts and t shirts walking with hot girls. And there I was, decked out in Armani, all by myself. It was preposterous. I should have been the one walking with the hot girls. I soon realized that no one cared at all about how well I dressed. No girls admired me. No girls even gave me a second look. I soon found out the name of the beautiful girl in my math class. Her name was Brittany Story. Being the obsessed stalker that I was, I looked her up on Facebook, and what I found shattered my already wounded heart to pieces. She had a boyfriend. Not only that, but her boyfriend was the type of boy I have always hated and despised, a tall, muscular surfer jock with a buzz cut. As I looked at all the pictures of the two of them together, I shivered with pure hatred. I could physically feel the hatred burn through my entire body. I wanted to kill both of them, and I was capable of doing it. Brittany's story should have been mine, and if I can't have her, no one should. I fantasized about capturing the two of them and stripping the skin off her boyfriend's flesh while making her watch. Why must my life be so full of torment and hatred? I questioned the universe with turmoil and rolling inside me. I screamed and cried with anguish that day. My housemate Spencer heard it all, but I didn't care. I dropped my math class immediately after learning that Brittany had a boyfriend. I couldn't look at her beauty anymore. Knowing that some punk was able to enjoy having sex with her every day, I can only imagine how heavenly that guy's life must be. He was in heaven and I was in hell. Shortly after dropping my math class, I decided to drop all of my other classes in a rage. There was no point to it anymore. No matter how hard I tried, girls were not attracted to me. What was the point of going through college, getting a degree, and finding some mundane professional job afterwards if I could never experience the pleasure of girls along the way. I didn't want to torture myself with going to college and looking at all those beautiful girls I could never have. Nothing beneficial came out of it. There was no hope for me to ever have a desirable college life. My life was devoid of friends, devoid of girls, devoid of sex, and devoid of love. I realized that I will never be able to look back on my youth. The time that I should be having a blast and feel satisfied about all the happy memories I have, there were no happy memories, only misery, loneliness, rejection, and pain. The only thing I could do was even the score. I wanted to make everyone else suffer just as they made me suffer. I wanted revenge.
When I dropped my college classes, I crossed a threshold that I knew existed, but never actually believed I would cross. It completely ended all hope I had of living a desirable life in Santa Barbara. I realized that I would be a virgin forever, condemned to suffer rejection and humiliation at the hands of women because they don't fancy me, because their sexual attractions are flawed. They are attracted to the wrong type of male. I always mused to myself that I would rather die than suffer such an existence, and I knew that if it came to that, I would exact my revenge upon the world in the most catastrophic way possible. At least then I could die knowing that I fought back against the injustice that had been dealt to me. Ever since my life took a very dark turn at the age of 17, I often had fantasies of how malevolently satisfying it would be to punish all of the popular kids and young couples for the crime of having a better life than me. I dreamed of how sweet it would be to torture or kill every single young couple I saw. However, as I said previously in the story, I never thought I would actually go through with these drastic desires. I had hope inside me that I could one day have a happy life. It was only when I first moved to Santa Barbara and that I started considering the possibility of having to carry out a violent act of revenge as a final solution to dealing with all of the injustices I had to face at the hands of women and society. I came up with a name for this after I saw all of the good-looking young couples walking around my college and in the town of Isla Vista. I named it the Day of Retribution. It would be a day in which I exact my ultimate retribution and revenge on all of the hedonistic scum who enjoyed lives of pleasure that they didn't deserve. If I can't have it, I will destroy it. I will destroy all women because I could never have them. I will make them all suffer for rejecting me. I will arm myself with deadly weapons and wage a war against all women and the men they are attracted to. And I will slaughter them like the animals that they are. If they won't accept me among them, then they are my enemies. They showed me no mercy, and I in turn will show them no mercy. The prospect will be so sweet, and justice will ultimately be served. And of course, I would have to die in the act to avoid going to prison. That is when I realized that this threshold existed, and if I crossed it, I will have to carry out this day of retribution. It has remained stagnant in the back of my mind ever since until this point. After dropping my spring classes at Santa Barbara City College, I knew that the day of retribution was now very possible. I even wrote about it in my diary, but I later tore out the pages because I feared someone might find them. A shiver ran through me, realizing how twisted my world had become, that I would have to resort to doing something that I would consider unthinkable a few years ago. I didn't want to do it. I wanted to live. Thinking about the day of retribution made me feel trapped. I wanted a way out. After some deep contemplation, I had the revelation that the day of retribution wasn't the only way I could make up for all of the suffering I've had to experience. If I could somehow become a multimillionaire at a young age, then my lifestyle would instantly become better than most people my age. I would be able to get revenge on my enemies just by living above them and lording over them. That was a form of happy, peaceful revenge, and it became my only hope. Once again, I started to desperately ponder over ways that I could become extremely wealthy at a young age. It was my only way out. This is when I realized that wealth was the only way I could lose my virginity, the only way I could have the beautiful girlfriend I know I deserve. Due to all of my past experiences with girls, it is evident that girls are not attracted to me as a person. They are repulsed by me. The only way I could possibly become worthy of their love and attraction is if I become wealthy. In the beginning of March, I went home in a sullen and disturbed mood. I did my best to hide it from my parents. I also had to hide the fact that I dropped all of my college classes, and I kept up the pretense that I was still attending college, talking to my father about my lectures and so forth. The weekend that I visited home was quite an eventful one, and I had been looking forward to it for some time. On Sunday, March 11th, 2012, I went with my mother and sister to a private, exclusive Katy Perry concert, and on March 12th, 2012, I went with my father and Sumaya to the red carpet premiere of The Hunger Games. The invitation to the private Katy Perry concert was actually meant for Rob Lemelson, as the concert was held for extremely wealthy people who were clients of NetJets, a private jet company. Rob had no interest in such things, so he gave the tickets to my mother. I was eager to go because I loved attending exclusive events. It made me feel special. For most of the time, for most of the time spent at the concert, I just walked around and ate food at the buffet tables while everyone waited for Katy Perry to perform. There was upbeat music playing the entire time, and a lot of wealthy families with their kids attended. Every family there must have had a net worth of at least 20 million to be able to hire private jets. I tried to pretend as if I was part of a wealthy family. I should be. That was the life I was meant to live. I would be. If only my damnable mother had married into wealth instead of being selfish. If only my failure of a father had made better decisions with his directing career instead of wasting his money on that stupid documentary. I couldn't help but feel a bitter form of envy at all of the rich kids at the concert. They grew up in lavish mansions, indulged in excessive opulence, and will never have to worry about anything their pleasurable, hedonistic lives. I would take great pleasure in watching all of those rich families burn alive. Looking at all of them really drilled in my mind the importance of wealth. Wealth is one of the most important defining factors of self-worth and superiority. I hated and envied all those kids for being born into wealth while I had to struggle to find a way to claim wealth for myself. I had to be ruthless and do whatever it takes to attain such wealth. After all, it was my only hope of ever being worthy of getting a girlfriend and living the life of gratification that I desire. The red carpet premiere of The Hunger Games was an even more exclusive event. The reason we got in was because my father was friends with the director, Gary Ross. My father even introduced me to the film as a second unit. My father even contributed, I don't know where I got introduced from. My father even contributed to the film as a second unit director. Gary Ross had been coming over to Father's house for dinner quite frequently in the past few months. When he told me about the Hunger Games, I had never heard about it before, so I decided to read the books that the movie would be based on. It was quite an enjoyable story, and I became a fan. At the same time, my stepmother, Sumaya, was in the process of filming a French reality TV series called Les Vraies Housewives. Her status as a reality TV star, coupled with my father's important association with Gary Ross, enabled us all to attain VIP tickets to the red carpet premiere, including admittance to walk on the red carpet itself, which was actually a black carpet in a literal sense. I didn't own any suits, but I wore my extravagant Hugo Boss shirt, which I thought looked elegant enough to walk on the black carpet. As we were lining up for our walk on the black carpet, some dumb bitch of a security guard had the audacity to question, "Who the hell are these people?" This made me so enraged that I almost said, "We are people who are more important than you, you ugly cunt." But Sumaya's publicist calmly informed her of our invitation. We then proceeded to walk across the long black carpet as cameras flashed at us from one side, and a crowd of pathetic fans who reminded me of sheep cheered from the other side. I felt extremely gratified at walking on the black carpet with Father and Sumaya, and I cockily smiled at all of the stupid fans who had to remain on the side, rubbing it right in their faces. There were some actors and celebrities on the carpet with us, and the paparazzi yelled at me a few times to get out of the way as they were taking pictures of some cunt actress. I discreetly gave those paparazzi pigs my middle finger. Elliot Rodger will not move aside for a stupid, good-for-nothing, over-glorified actress, whoever the fuck she was. I didn't see. We walked through all of the chaos until we finally reached the theater where the movie was being screened, called the Nokia Theater. It was one of the biggest theaters I had ever seen, able to see hundreds of people. At the entrance, Father and I greeted Jack Ross, the son of Gary Ross. He was a spoiled brat of a 16-year-old, and to my embarrassment, he stood taller than me. I immediately hated him on sight. He was living the life I should be living, if only my father had become as successful as a director as Gary Ross. I equally hated his repugnant friends who ended up sitting in front of me and partially blocking my view for the entire movie. Throughout the whole film, I had to fight the urge not to splash my drink all over the little shitheads in a vehement rage. They spoiled it for me, and it was quite a good movie, too.
The movie was entertaining, but my favorite part of this premiere was the after party. Yes, we were invited to the after party, where only the most important guests could attend. I felt so special as I handed my VIP tickets to the guards outside, gaining admittance. The party was extravagant, with buffet tables set up in every corner serving exquisite delicacies. I excitedly went from plate to plate, helping myself to all the food. Father and Sumaya went off to socialize with Gary Ross and his entourage of producers. I didn't know anyone there, of course, so I just spent time with my sister Georgia. A few moments into the party, I ran into an old face. He noticed me first and called out my name, saying, "Is your name Elliot?" He was none other than Ashton Moy from Pinecrest Middle School. I hadn't seen him since 8th grade. He was now in the process of starting a career in acting, and he had a small part in the movie. I actually read about his this beforehand, but I didn't expect I would run into him at the after party. Ashton's sister, Moy, I don't know how to say it, Moy, I don't know, was nowhere to be seen. I suppose she wasn't invited. Ha! I remember all the pain she caused me during my 8th grade year at Pinecrest. I tried to act as cool and confident as I possibly could with Ashton, though I felt intimidated. He was one of the most popular kids at Pinecrest, and now he was becoming an actor, one of the most attractive careers a man can have. I assumed he had probably slept with countless beautiful girls. Damn him. I had a brief conversation with him before trying to leave his presence as fast as I could. I didn't want him to find out how pathetic my life was. While roaming around the after party, I bore witness to many successful young men who pranced in with their hot model girlfriends. Some of them were even actors my own age, stars of the movie. I had a particular burning hatred for the actor Alexander Ludwig, who I saw sitting arrogantly on a couch as people crowded around him in adoration. I hated everything about him: his golden blonde hair, his tall, muscular frame, his cocky, masculine face. That boy could get any girl he wanted. His life was completely opposite from my own. If I could only get a taste of how he lived for just one day. As I saw all of these successful men with their beautiful dates, I became even more convinced about how important money and status was in attaining a desirable life of love and sex. It made me even more obsessed with my goal of becoming wealthy at a very young age. That was the only way to live life. The whole premiere, from the red carpet to the film to the after party, was an extraordinary experience, and I will never forget it. I felt I still felt very bitter that I wasn't able to bring a girl with me as a date. The majority of men at the event had a date with them, and I felt so pathetic for not having a date. If only a girl at my college had been attracted to me, I would have gladly brought her to the premieres as my date. When I returned to Santa Barbara, I realized that I had absolutely no obligations. Since I had dropped all of my college classes, I had all the time in the world. I wanted to make use of that time as much as I could. Frantically, I tried to come up with ways to find some sort of idea to make millions of dollars. Some would say this was a folly, but it has been done before. Many people have succeeded in coming up with an idea and making millions, or even billions, instantly. I was an extraordinary, magnificent person destined for great things. If other people could do it, why not me? It was my destiny, my whole purpose on this world. For the next week or so, I spent time meditating in my room, trying to come up with ways to get rich. I could either invent something, start a great business idea, or go back to my original idea I had, writing an epic fantasy story that could be made into a movie. That reminded me of the reason why I gave up on the idea in the first place: the amount of time it would take to achieve success from such a prospect. I was so desperate and I needed to do something right there and then. It was a matter of life and death. If I couldn't make it, then I had nothing to live for. After a lot of deep thinking, I couldn't come up with anything. Was I doomed to fail at everything? I began to feel hopeless until I saw the current jackpot for the Mega Millions lottery. It was rising very high in the month of March. Um, I had saved up a lot of money at the time, so I had enough to spare on lottery tickets. So as long as I didn't go under $5,000, which I wanted to keep as minimum amount of savings just in case of an emergency or in case I would have to carry out the day of retribution. As it also as it so happened, I had well over 6,000 saved up at that time from all the allowance, Christmas money, and birthday money that my parents and grandmothers had been sending me. For the first time since moving to Santa Barbara, I began to take serious interest in playing the lottery again. I believe that it was destiny for me to win the Mega Millions lottery, particularly this very jackpot. People win the lottery every single month, so why not me? I was meant to live a life of significance and extravagance. I was meant to win this jackpot. It was destiny. For the first few drawings I played, I spent 50 to 100 on tickets. But to my profound frustration, I still didn't win, and the jackpot kept rising. This only increased my enthusiasm. I started to picture a whole new, perfect life for myself after I won. I imagined buying a beautiful, opulent mansion with an extravagant view and acquiring a collection of supercars, which I would use specifically to attract beautiful girls into my life. I planned to go back to college once I had bolstered myself with all this wealth and lord myself over all the other students there, finally fulfilling my dream of being the coolest and most popular kid at school. As I sat meditating in my room, I imagined the ecstasy I would feel as scores of beautiful girls look at me with admiration as I drive up to college in a Lamborghini. Such an experience would make up for everything. I had to win this jackpot. As the jackpot reached over 200 million, I spent more of my saved money on lottery tickets, but I still didn't win. I knew that the more I spent on tickets, the higher chance I had of winning. I was so desperate to live a satisfying life that I spent $400 on tickets when the jackpot hit 290 million. When I failed to win that, I spent $500 on tickets when it reached 363 million, and I still didn't win it on that one. And then the jackpot reached a number that I never imagined it would, 656 million. I was astounded and filled with a feverish enthusiasm of hope and desire. This was the highest lottery jackpot in history. I knew I was destined for great things. This must be it. I was destined to be the winner of the highest lottery jackpot in existence. I knew right then and there that this jackpot was meant for me. Who else deserves such a victory? I had been through so much rejection, suffering, and injustice in my life, and this was to be my salvation. With my whole body filled with a feverish hope, I spent $700 on lottery tickets for this drawing. As I spent this money, I imagined all the amazing sex I would have with a beautiful model girlfriend I would have once I became a man of wealth. After the ultimate and fateful drawing, I waited 3 days to check the result. I was too anxious about what I will see. The result would determine the fate of my whole life. For those 3 days, I meditated alone in my room, trying to convince myself that I was the winner. I held all the tickets in my hand, excitedly pondering over which one was the true winning ticket. There were many times during this period where I was about to check the result, but canceled the web page in the last second out of fear of what I might see. The prospect of finding out that I lost was devastating. On the fourth day, I decided to just go through with it. The result was already decided, and the amount of time it took for me to check it wouldn't change anything. I had to see the truth. My heart was beating rapidly as I loaded up the webpage to the Mega Millions website. What I saw crushed all of my hope completely. My whole body shivered with horrific agony. I didn't win. 3 people won the jackpot, and it was split between them. But none of those people were me. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. I was certain I would be the winner. It was destiny, fate. But no, the world continued to give me no justice or salvation whatsoever. I sank into one of the worst depressions of my life. It was spring break, and while all other young boys my age going off to vacation with their attractive friends, I was feeling miserable and alone in my room because I failed to win the lottery jackpot that would enable me to rise above them all. I was so depressed that even when my mother came up to Santa Barbara with my sister and her friends for a short day trip, I refused to see them.
Sorry, I'm coming. Hang on. For the next month, I barely left my room. I was completely and utterly at the end of all hope. My life is over, I thought. Without that wealth, What was there to live for in the future? I still couldn't believe I didn't win. I kept thinking about the heavenly life I would be living if I had won. I was certain of my victory right at the moment of the drawing. Instead, it turned to a crushing defeat, just like everything else in my life. Everything I had tried to do in the past, ever since childhood, had been a failure. It was very hard to feel good about myself anymore. I spent all of my time drifting aimlessly, doing nothing with my time except brooding over my fate. I didn't want to think about anything. I could barely breathe from the stifling loneliness. All my energy had been sapped out of me. In the month of April, James Ellis officially ended the friendship between us. James hadn't contacted me at all since the Lemelsons' Christmas party, and I felt extremely offended by this. For the first few months of 2012, I had been trying to contact him, demanding to know why he continued to act so cold and distant to me. I thought that after we spoke with each other at the Lemelsons, things would get better between us. I was dead wrong. I got hold of him on the phone in February, and he said a few words to me before quickly making an excuse to hang up. A month later, I messaged him on Facebook to tell him how rude he was on the phone, and in April, I received a response from him. He blatantly said that he didn't want to be friends anymore. He didn't even deign to tell me why. That word, man. After he said the fateful words, he refused to talk to me ever again. That was the last time I ever spoke to him. It was the ultimate betrayal. I thought he was the one friend I had in the whole world who truly understood me, who truly understood my views and the reasons why I thought the way I did about the world. I confided everything to him because I thought we were on the same page. To be betrayed in such a manner wounded me deeply, though I never admitted it to anyone. On the day of the betrayal, I thought back on our entire friendship. James Ellis was my oldest friend. I remembered the first time I met him as we kicked dust together. Sorry. As first graders at Topanga Elementary School. I didn't think that was going to come back. I remembered all of the good times I spent at his various houses in the Palisades, trading Pokemon cards when we were little, our brief interest in skateboarding, playing World of Warcraft together as teenagers, all of our walks through the Palisades town center. He was a big part of my life, and now he was gone, faded away into memory. I didn't have any friends left anymore. No friends in the entire world. I didn't want to see Philip and Addison after I cried in front of them at the Getty Museum. I was completely and utterly alone, in the darkest pit of despair, and in that pit I withered in agony. My deep depression lasted well into the summer. My life stayed stagnant and miserable, and my hatred towards everyone, especially women, for depriving me of a happy life only grew stronger. I questioned myself over and over about what was going to happen to me now. I didn't want it to resort to having to exact ultimate vengeance. I didn't want to die. I wanted something to live for. There had to be a way for me to become wealthy. I continued to see it was the only way I would ever have a beautiful girlfriend and lose my virginity. My ultimate dream was to experience the pleasures of love and sex with girls once I become rich enough to be worthy of them, and then I would settle down with a beautiful girlfriend and have beautiful children with her, whom I would raise up to live a much better life than the one I had to suffer through. That would be the most satisfying vengeance against all those young people who thought they were better than me. If I could show them that I lived such a life, my purpose on this world would be complete. To see the look on all of their faces once I've risen above them, I couldn't imagine anything sweeter. I so happened to come across a book called The Power of Your Subconscious Mind by Joseph Murphy. This book would fill me with hope for the next few months. It was very similar to The Secret, the book I read over a year ago, and it had the same effect on me. It gave an even more in-depth view on the law of attraction. A year previously, I had given up on believing in such a concept, but when I read through this book thoroughly, I desperately convinced myself to give it a try. I wanted to believe the theory could work. I needed something to live for. I began to visualize myself winning the lottery. I did this all throughout the month of June. After continuous analyzing and contemplation, I concluded that winning the lottery was the only way I could become wealthy at a young age, and thus it was the only way to enjoy the rest of my youth. If I didn't have a satisfying youth, I would be bitter and miserable for the rest of my life. But of course, that would never happen. If it came to that, then I would have to carry out the day of retribution. Indeed, it was the only way I could attain any sort of wealth at my age. I had no talents, so it was impossible for me to become a professional actor, musician, or athlete, and those were usually the ways that young people acquired such money. I could invent something or start a business, just like Mark Zuckerberg did with Facebook, but the chances of me achieving such a thing were the same chances I had of winning the lottery anyway. I didn't even have the skills of a computer programmer. After reading this book, I wanted to believe that there was some sort of supernatural power that I could harness to change reality as I saw fit. For the months of June and July, I took frequent walks around Gersh Park in Goleta, dreaming and visualizing about winning the lottery. I affirmed that once the jackpot rose to over 100 million, I would buy a ticket and that ticket would be the winner. For all of the months of summer, people kept winning the lottery and the jackpot kept resetting, but I was so desperate that I still clung to my faith that I would soon win. On one of the days in July, when I was roaming around Gersh Park, a group of popular college kids arrived to play kickball in the fields. They all looked like typical fraternity jocks, tall and muscular, the kind of guys I've hated and envied all my life. With them came a flock of beautiful blonde girls, and they looked like they were having so much fun playing together. One of the girls did a handstand in the grass, and her sexy bare stomach showed as her shirt hung down. All of the girls were scantily clad. Rage boiled inside me as I watched those people who thought that they were better than me enjoying their pleasurable little lives together. The rage was so intense that I couldn't take it. I was insulted too much. I couldn't leave them without getting some form of revenge. So I drove to the nearby Kmart, bought a super soaker. Oh my God, filled it with orange juice that I bought at the same store and drove back to the park. They were still there, having the time of their lives, and I wanted to ruin it for them. I wanted to ruin their fun just like they ruined mine, as they would never accept me among them. I screamed at them with rage as I sprayed them with my super soaker. When the boys started to yell and chase after me, I quickly got into my car and drove away. I was giddy with ecstatic, hate-fueled excitement. I wished I could spray boiling oil at the foul beasts. They deserved to die horrible, painful deaths just for the crime of enjoying a better life than me. I drove to a secluded area of the parking lot at the Camino Real Marketplace nearby, my heart beating rapidly. After I had calmed down, I was overcome with the worry and fear that I would get in trouble for it. I wondered with panic if there were any cameras at the park that could have caught me in the act. The worry lasted for a few days, but eventually I became relieved that no trouble came out of it. My mother and sister came up to Santa Barbara for my 21st birthday. I didn't want them to come up, but they came anyway. I suppose my mother felt sorry for me, that I would be alone on my 21st birthday. And it's true, I would have been alone. Isn't that such a sad thing to contemplate, being alone on my 21st birthday? Most other men have huge drinking parties with their friends and girlfriends to mark their passing over the legal age limit to drink alcohol. I've read stories online of how exciting other men's 21st birthdays are. I had absolutely no one to celebrate mine with. Having no friends, the only people who even wished me a happy birthday were my immediate family members. When my mother and sister arrived in Santa Barbara, they wanted to meet up at a restaurant in State Street, but that prospect horrified me. State Street was filled with young couples walking around arm in arm as they went out on their blissful dates. I was already tortured at the fact that I was now a 21-year-old virgin. I didn't want to torture myself anymore. I looked online for a quieter restaurant that we could meet at, a place where young couples most likely wouldn't know about. I came across a secluded Japanese restaurant in Montecito named Sakana. I suggested this to Mother, and since it was my birthday, she gave me the choice of where to eat. I met the two of them outside the restaurant as they were waiting to be seated. I was in a sullen and depressed mood. Turning 21 as a kissless virgin was indeed a dark day. How pathetic it was to be 21 and still a virgin while kids were having sex at the age of 14. The unfairness of life on this world is staggeringly horrific. The restaurant Sakana turned out to be a very good choice. They served the most delicious Japanese food I had ever tasted in my life. They had so many creative dishes to try, and I ordered so many meals that the bill reached over $200. I eagerly devoured all of it, compensating for my sorrows with delectable food. My mother loved the restaurant as well. She had been to all the best Japanese restaurants in LA with her various wealthy boyfriends, and she proclaimed that Sakana topped all of them. From this point onwards, it would become a tradition for us to eat here whenever my mother came up to visit me. After dinner, we went to the Starbucks in Montecito, and I washed the exquisite meal down with a nice warm latte. I never explored much of Montecito before, and I found it to be a lovely, beautiful place. It reminded me of Calabasas, though much quieter and more conservative. I figured I would be spending a lot more time there in the future.
21 years old. Hold on, let me take this comment off the screen. Oh, shoot. In August, I continued to build up my faith that I am destined to win the Mega Millions jackpot. It is the future that was meant for me, the perfect happy conclusion to the tragic life I've had to experience in the past. I couldn't wait to rub my status as a wealthy man right in the faces of all the people who looked down on me and all of the girls who thought of me as unworthy. I mused that once I become wealthy, I would finally be worthy enough to all the beautiful girls. I spent the whole month meditating in my room or roaming around the park, visualizing the final outcome of my victory. Through the power of the law of attraction, which I had studied so intensely with the new book I found, I felt certain that I would become the winner. I looked forward to it with profound eagerness. This was also the last month I had at the apartment until unit I was staying in. I was set to transfer to a room in the main complex of Capri Apartments for the next school year. The conflict between Spencer and I had calmed down over the summer. He brought a few girls to his apartment, but they were all ugly, so I tried not to get jealous. I still hate him for the fact that he was able to witness how lonely and miserable my life was. I had spent my entire year in Isla Vista, Santa Barbara, and I had not a single girl into my apartment. The pure rage and hatred I felt over that fact was enough. But to have someone like Spencer in my vicinity to judge me on it was salt on the wound. I made plans to track Spencer down once I became wealthy and arrogantly showing off my new life to him. That would be the only way to get even. I wanted to show Spencer, to show the whole world that I had worth. I didn't think much about my imminent move to a new room, nor did I think much about who my new housemates would be. I firmly believed that I would win the lottery before then. I would then go back to my mother's house, show her my ticket, and buy a mansion of my own to begin a new life of heavenly bliss. One could say that I was being delusional, but my desperation for happiness was so intense that I wanted to believe that this was true. I wanted to believe that I had the power to invoke this into my reality. I have craved power and significance all my life, and I will stop at nothing to find ways of attaining it. Before I knew it, my lease at my current room ended, and on September 5th, I transferred to the new room. Spencer and I didn't deign to say goodbye to each other. We despised each other that much. I knew I would see him again when I tracked him down to show off my wealth that I firmly believed I would attain. I found out that my new apartment in the main complex of Capri was the same exact apartment unit that I stayed in for the first month I had in Santa Barbara. Apartment number 7 in Seville Street, on Seville Street. When I had moved all of my belongings in, it was all empty. The manager told me that 2 housemates would be moving into the second bedroom within 2 weeks. Hence, I trusted that the manager had the sense to pair me with mature people, knowing my experiences with those 2 barbaric housemates I had to deal with a year previously. By the time I moved in, the jackpot had finally risen over 100 million. That was the moment of truth. I had been waiting all summer for this to happen. Overcome with trepidation, I spent the next week in my new room meditating and visualizing winning the lottery very soon. I could feel the excitement I would feel once I see the 6 numbers on my ticket match the numbers that would be drawn. I imagined myself jumping up and down with joy once my victory was confirmed. On September 11th, the drawing for a jackpot worth 120 million commenced. I bought a $5 ticket and proclaimed that this had to be mine. When I saw the winner was from California, my heart beat like a drum. This was it. Fate was being decided right at that moment. I didn't win. I looked at my ticket over and over again, and then at the winning numbers, no match. It was just like what happened in March, except this was worse because I had built up anticipation for the entire summer. The winner was some guy from Riverside. He took my money. What a waste. What an injustice. I was so certain that the universe would finally grant me salvation after a life of torture and suffering. I then looked at my small, cramped room and realized that my lonely, depressing life of virginity will continue on mercilessly. That night, I threw a wild tantrum, screaming and crying for hours on end. I had the whole apartment to myself, so there was no one there to hear me. I raged at the entire world, thrashing at my bed with my wooden practice sword and slashing at the air with my pocket knife. Oh, I even downed an entire bottle of wine and got so drunk that I spilled my wine all over my laptop, permanently destroying it. I soaked my pillow with tears as I drifted off to sleep in my lonely bed. On the next morning, I felt so drained and depressed. I then realized that I destroyed my laptop, so I called my mother, begging her to buy me a new one. I made up the story that the laptop randomly died and I had no control over it. After some persuading, I managed to make her agree to buy me a new one. I quickly drove to Best Buy to look for a new laptop and decided to choose a newer, updated version of the Asus laptop I had previously. As it turned out, the Best Buy in Santa Barbara didn't have one in stock, so I had to drive all the way to Oxnard to pick one up. I paid the $1,500 for it, with the assurance that my mother would drive up to bring me a reimbursement in a few days. I had to wait a few hours for them to prepare the laptop for me, and while I waited, I decided to go to the shooting range in Oxnard. I had the knowledge in the back of my mind that the day of retribution was very possible now. Going to the shooting range while I waited for my laptop gave me the perfect opportunity to gain some initial training in shooting guns, which will be the main weapon I use as vengeance against my enemies when the day of retribution ultimately comes to pass. I walked into the range, rented a handgun from the ugly old redneck cashier, and started to practice shooting at paper targets. As I fired my first few rounds, I felt so sick to the stomach. I questioned my whole life, and I looked at the gun in front of me and asked myself, what am I doing here? How could things have led to this? I couldn't believe my life was actually turning out this way. There I was practicing shooting with real guns because I had a plan to carry out a massacre. Why did things have to be this way? I silently questioned myself as I looked at the handgun I was holding in front of me. I paid my fee and left the range within minutes, feeling as if I was going to be sick. I spent the rest of the waiting period at the Coffee Bean in Oxnard, where I sat by myself feeling absolutely disgusted. My whole world was twisted. Within the following days, I spent a lot of time at the park, watching the wind blow through the trees and the children playing in the fields. I questioned the very fabric of reality. Why did all this exist? I wondered. How did life come to be? What was the nature of reality? What was my place in all of it? There was no point to my life anymore. I was never going to lose my virginity. I was never going to get a girlfriend because girls are repulsed by me. I was never going to have children and pass on my genes. The only way that I could have been worthy enough to beautiful girls is if I become wealthy at a young age. And the faith I had in that happened had just been crushed. There was no hope left. The life I could have had ceased to exist. I will never have sex, never have love, never have children. I will never be a creator, but I could be a destroyer. Life had been cruel to me. The human species had rejected me all of my life, despite the fact that I am the ideal, magnificent gentleman. Life itself is twisted and disgusting, I mused. Humans are brutal animals. If I cannot thrive among them, then I will destroy them all. I didn't want things to turn out this way. I wanted a happy, healthy life of love and sex. But if I'm unable to have such a life, then I will have no choice but to exact revenge on society that denied it to me. My new housemates moved into the other room of my apartment at the end of the semester, at the end of September. They didn't know each other before they moved in, which was better for me because then they wouldn't gang up on me. Not like they would do such a thing anyway, since my two new housemates were both timid, geeky types. One of them was a funny looking curly haired boy named Chris Rugg, and the other was an Asian American named John. After the first few days of their stay, I felt content with these new housemates. They were quiet, respectful, and very friendly. And best of all, they never invited any friends over. I doubt they even had any friends. All they did was stay in their rooms and played video games all day. Of course, I had no desire to be friends with them because they had absolutely nothing to offer. but I knew I would have no problems with them in my apartment, and that was the best I could hope for. Hey, Julia, do you think I should play any of the videos or not? What do you? I don't know.
I don't know.
I mean, does anybody want to see any of them? There's a couple shorter ones, or do you just want to wait for my compilation?
What are we reading till tonight? You want to play some at the end, maybe?
Yeah, we could. I mean, I don't know what so we still have, so there's 37 pages, so we have 27 left. I don't know how long yeah, at least we could keep reading a little bit. Are you still good to go?
I could keep reading, but we also, if you want, we could stop now and you could play some of those videos and then we could do the final one, right? Right? Would that make sense with where we're at?
I mean, I probably could just play like one or two videos and they're short. So, I mean, do you want to just read a little bit more maybe or are you getting tired?
Wait, no, I'm good. But what's the last page? 130 what?
137. I like to try to maybe do a little bit more just to.
Okay, yeah, I see. Okay.
Is that all right?
Yeah.
I don't know, because I'm actually feeling like I could go a little longer, so I want to take advantage of it. But as long as you feel
Yeah,
that way.
no, I'm good.
Okay, yeah, let's go a little bit longer.
I'm trying to like remember certain things to mention later too.
I know I've been trying to take notes, but usually when I'm reading and I'm like, oh shoot, I'm trying to like take notes because no, there was something on this one I wanted to write.
I wasn't expecting his. We won't talk about it now, but just so I don't forget, his reaction to going to the shooting range was interesting. That he was like, "Oh, what am I doing?"
Yeah,
and had a very healthy reaction to that in a way.
Yep, it's
Weird.
true.
All right,
yeah, it is.
On Halloween weekend, I made the wise decision to go home to my mother's house. There was no way I was going to torture myself by staying alone in my room while the entire town of Isla Vista erupted in, how do you pronounce that? Raucous?
Raucous. I looked it up after you
Raucous?
did it. Raucous. Yeah, that's
one of
what it
those
says
words
when
that
you
like
look it up.
I know what it means and I've read it a bunch of times. I don't think I've ever said it or heard it
Oh, that's
said out
fine.
loud.
I don't know how to
Raucous?
say a lot of words. Raucous. That's what it says online. Yeah.
All right. Erupted in raucous. I mean, what's debauchery? Debauchery? What is that?
I have
one?
no. I don't know that one.
I
I'll
know
look it
that
up
word
while you're
too, and I've
reading.
never had to say it out loud.
It's okay.
I know what it
don't
means.
worry.
It's like
You're
that
better than
hedonistic.
me. I'm horrible
Anyway.
at pronouncing words.
All of the tall, hunky jocks that girls love so much will be having all of the sex and all of the fun, while an unwanted outcast like myself would rot in loneliness. I imagined that some attractive guys who only visited Isla Vista for the Halloween event, will be getting laid that weekend. They'd be getting sex from just one night in Isla Vista, while I'm still a virgin after living there for over a year. It was too unfair. I wanted to punish them all. I imagined how sweet it would be to slaughter all of those evil, slutty bitches who rejected me, along with the fraternity jocks they throw themselves at. To see all of them running from me in fear as I kill them left and right, that would be the ultimate retribution. Only then would I have all the power. They treated me like an insignificant little mouse, but on the day of retribution, I would be a god to them. They will be the mice, and I will be the predator. I considered setting the date for the day of retribution to be the next Halloween of 2013. That would give me a year to prepare, but I soon dismissed it. If the day of retribution were to happen, it would have to be on a normal weekend. There would be too many cops walking around during an event like Halloween, and cops are the only ones who could hinder my plans. I spent the time at Mother's house relaxing and trying to forget about Halloween. I drank some of my mother's delicious wine until I was too buzzed to think about how much fun everyone else my age was having on that night. I didn't even bother to register for college classes that semester. There was no point. I believed that I would either fulfill my dream of becoming wealthy at a young age in order to be worthy enough to attract beautiful women, or exact my revenge upon the world and die in the process to escape punishment. There was no other path for me. Of course, I registered for some classes, but only to keep up the pretense to my parents that I was still attending college. If they somehow found out that I had dropped my classes right after registering for them, they would have stopped all of their support for me, and my life would have to end right then and there. Thankfully, I was a good liar. During the autumn of 2012, I had all the time in the world to figure out how I was going to triumph against the society that was torturing me. I spent a lot of time in the library at Goleta, just a few miles away from Isla Vista. At the library, I read countless books on history, business, and philosophy, learning as much as I could. It was better than staying at home in my room. Besides, I didn't want my housemates to find out that I wasn't going to college. That would be embarrassing. And I always cared about what others thought about me, even my nerdy housemates. I continued to visit the website of the Mega Millions lottery. I still clung to the hope that it may rise above 100 million again, and I would be the winner. So far, I saw that as my only way out of my horrible situation. My situation was indeed horrible. I couldn't leave the house without seeing a young couple walking around somewhere. Everywhere I went, I was all by myself, while other young people had friends and girlfriends. I was ashamed to show myself to the world. Even though I wore expensive designer clothes, what was the point if girls still weren't attracted to me? No one respects a man who is unable to get a woman. A man wearing shorts and a t-shirt would be seen as superior to me if he walked into a store with a beautiful girl on his arm and I walked in all alone. A man having a beautiful girl by his side shows the world that he is worth something because obviously that beautiful girl sees some sort of worth in him. If a man is all alone, people get the impression that girls are repulsed by him and therefore he is a worthless loser. I saw winning the lottery as the only way out, and I became so frustrated when the Mega Millions jackpot kept resetting. In the end of November, the jackpot was very close to getting high enough, but then it sank to the bottom once again. It was at this point that I learned about the Powerball lottery. The Powerball hadn't yet come to California, so I knew nothing about it before. I looked at the website and saw that the jackpot was over 500 million. California didn't have a Powerball lottery, so in order to buy a ticket, I would have to drive all the way to Arizona.
Earlier in that day, as I drove through Isla Vista, I saw this one particular young couple that stood out from the rest, only because the girl looked absolutely perfect. She was tall, blonde, and sexy. She would have towered over me in height, and her boyfriend, of course, towered over her. They were both wearing beach gear, and the girl was in her bikini, showing off to everyone her sensual erection causing body. Her blonde hair was wet from swimming in the ocean, and it only made her look more arousing. The two of them were holding hands, and it was clear that they were in love. I saw the boyfriend place his hand on the girl's ass, and when he did this, the girl looked at him and smiled with delight. That guy was in heaven. I could only imagine how amazing it must be to have sex with a girl like that. I had to witness everything I wanted but I could not have. It made me feel dizzy with anguish. I immediately thought about the couple and how impossible it was for me to have the same experience as that guy. Impossible, as I was at that point. But it would be possible for me to get a tall, blonde, sexy girlfriend if I was a multimillionaire. Oh, yes, it would be very possible. Becoming a multimillionaire is the only way I could have such an experience. And winning the lottery was the only way I could become a multimillionaire at my age. As I stared at the Powerball jackpot that was over 500 million, I knew that I had to win it. It was midnight when I had this revelation, and the drawing was on the following day. The only way I could get a ticket before the drawing was if I left for Arizona right then and there. And so that is exactly what I did. I quickly looked up the best route on Google Maps, packed some food into my backpack, and took off. The sun rose as I crossed the long stretch of desert between Palm Springs and the border of Arizona. It was one of the most beautiful things I had ever seen. When I saw the sun creeping up before me in the horizon, igniting the clouds with its orange glow, I proclaimed that sunrise as the sunrise of my destiny. I was riding towards my destiny to obtain the record-breaking Powerball ticket of 500 million. As I drove, I thought about every event in my life that led up to that journey. I considered that journey as the ultimate culmination of the tragic suffering and sexual starvation I had to go through for so long. That Powerball jackpot was meant for me. Once I won it, I'd be able to have my beautiful blonde girlfriend. I'd be able to show the world that girls consider me worthy. I'd be able to show the world how superior I am. And of course, I would be able to live above everyone who has wronged me and rub it all in their faces as a form of gratifying vengeance. That was my ultimate purpose in life, my reason for living. I didn't win. It was almost the same scenario that I suffered through in March, except this one was twice as devastating. When I finally arrived home from the long trip, I immediately went to bed after not sleeping for so long. It was very difficult to stay awake on the road, but I managed to do it due to the severe importance of the journey. The Powerball drawing occurred while I slept, and my last thought before drifting off to sleep was that when I woke up, I would be a multimillionaire and my life would be saved. I slept for a long time, and when I awakened, it was already the morning after the drawing. I was overcome with anxiety. I was so confident and certain that I would win before the drawing occurred. But once that point in time had passed, I feared that result. I feared that I might not have won. I spent the next 3 days in my room trying to garner enough courage to check the winning numbers that would determine my fate. After realizing how much time I was wasting, I visited the Powerball website to see the result. At the very first second of viewing the webpage, I caught a brief glimpse of it before closing it out of fear and panic. In that brief glimpse, I saw that there were 3 winning tickets, and one of them was in Arizona. My heart started beating rapidly. That had to be me, I thought, with hope and excitement welling up inside my whole body.
There was an Arizona winner, and I had bought my ticket in Arizona. After that long emotional journey, driving towards the sunrise in the middle of the desert, fighting off sleep just to get there in time, visualizing my whole future before me with a beautiful blonde girlfriend and the children I would have with her. After all that, who else could be the winner but me? It was meant for me. It was fate, destiny. I took out my tickets, of which I had purchased 50, and sifted through them to find the one that matched the winning numbers. I felt dizzy and ecstatic as I did it, feeling so certain that my victory will be confirmed. When I reached the end of my stack of tickets, I didn't find any that matched. For the first few moments, I couldn't even believe what was happening. I looked through all of my tickets again and again and again, and still nothing. I didn't win. I sat very quiet and still in my desk chair for a long time, all of the emotions swept out of me. I didn't react with rage or anguish. I just sat there, cold and dead, mentally trying to contemplate what I had just done. I had driven all the way to Arizona just to buy lottery tickets because I was so desperate for a happy life in which girls would be attracted to me. I was so certain I would win, building up all that hope, only to have it shattered right before me at just that moment. I then drove out of my apartment and made my way to the Gersh Park. I had to be somewhere peaceful. Along the way, I saw couples strolling along the streets of Isla Vista, walking arm in arm. I saw groups of good-looking young people walking together, laughing and enjoying each other's company. I felt completely dead inside, and torment racked my entire body as I realized that I now had no chance to rise above them. I lost. When I got to the park, I sat in my car for hours, crying and crying and crying. I wailed with agony. My tears streamed down my face and stained my collar. I couldn't take it anymore. Feeling the need to talk to someone, I called the only people I had in my life, my parents. I called them both, first my mother and then my father, and I told them both how much I was suffering from my loneliness and my utter realization that I had no hope of ever living a happy life. I told them that they must be ashamed of me, that I was a 21-year-old virgin who was unable to get a girlfriend or making any friends whatsoever. I was not the son any parent would want. My tantrum to my parents on the phone deeply disturbed them, and they arranged for me to see my psychiatrist, Dr. Charles Sophie, when I returned home for the winter break. Good. As the phrase that I had coined goes, if I cannot join them, I will rise above them. And if I cannot rise above them, I will destroy them. I've been trying to join and be accepted among the beautiful, popular people all my life, but it was to no avail. They have always treated me like scum. Girls have always deemed me unworthy of their love and sex. I tried to overthrow them by gaining wealth at a young age, from trying to come up with invention ideas to contemplating writing an epic story, and finally trying to win the lottery. At this point, the prospect of overthrowing them seemed hopeless. The final solution to triumph over my enemies was to destroy them, to carry out my day of retribution, to exact my ultimate and devastating vengeance against all of the popular young people who never accepted me, and against all women for rejecting me and starving me of love and sex. At this point, it fully dawned on me that the possibility of having to resort to exacting this retribution was more real than ever before. Without the prospect of becoming wealthy at a young age, I had nothing to live for now. I was going to be a virgin outcast forever. I realized that I had to start planning and preparing for the day of retribution, even though I hadn't yet had any idea of what that day would be. My first act of preparation was the purchase of my first handgun. I did this quickly and hastily at a local gun shop called Galetta Gun and Supply. I had already done some research on handguns, and I decided to purchase the Glock 34 semi automatic pistol, an efficient and highly accurate weapon. I signed all of the papers and was told that my pickup day was in mid December. That fell in nicely because that was when I was planning on staying in Santa Barbara. That was when I was planning on staying in Santa Barbara till. After I picked up the handgun, I brought it back to my room and felt a new sense of power. I was now armed. Who's the alpha male now, bitches? I thought to myself, regarding all of the girls who looked down on me in the past. I quickly admired my new weapon before locking it up in my safe and preparing to go back to my hometown for the winter break.
Okay. I didn't attend the Lemelson's Christmas party that year, nor would I ever again. The only person I ever really hung out with at those parties was James was no longer my friend. It would have been extremely awkward to be there while James is there, knowing that the two of us who used to be old friends since first grade would be avoiding each other. It'd be a foul and bitter experience, and I had already gone through enough anguish in the last few months. A few days before Christmas, I took off with my mother and sister for another vacation in England. She had called me a month previously to tell me about it. At first, I didn't want to go, knowing that I will feel miserable about going on vacation without a girlfriend to experience it with me, along with the shame of having to once again appear to my relatives in a fashion that I was unsatisfied with. A year had passed since the last trip, and I was in exactly the same position in life. I had nothing for my grandmothers to be proud of. No girlfriend, no future prospects, no life at all to talk about. The one thing that persuaded me to go was the fact that my mother planned to have us travel on the Virgin Atlantic upper class, the highest form of travel the airline offers. I hadn't traveled first class for a long time, and I just couldn't refuse such an offer. I've always had a penchant for luxury, opulence, and prestige. And traveling on the Virgin Atlantic upper class would get me that experience, if only for a short time. After all the anguish I had been through, I figured I needed a sense of respite by going on this luxurious vacation for just oh, man, yeah, it's about that time. For just this one brief period of my life, since I speculated that my life could very well be ending soon. I decided to try my best to forget about everything and indulge myself in every way I could on this trip to England. Before we took off, we spent some time at the exclusive upper class lounge at the Lax airport. There was a buffet with all sorts of goodies for me to pick at, and I had my fill of smoked salmon and champagne. While there, I had a discussion with my mother about whether I had any more hope in my life and what I could possibly do to get what I want in life. As holders of first class tickets, we skipped to the front of the line as we boarded the plane, and I took great satisfaction as I passed by all the people who flew economy, giving all the younger passengers a cocky little smirk whenever they looked at me. Once I had settled in my big, luxurious bed seat in the first class cabin, I had even more champagne, followed by an exquisite dinner of steak and potatoes, and some red wine to wash it all down. I ordered glass after glass of red wine during the whole ride and became quite drunk as I watched a few movies, one of them being the new Ice Age movie, which I found quite funny. When we arrived, we were chauffeured in a limousine to our hotel in Colchester. This time we stayed at the Holiday Inn, which was very similar to the hotel on the last trip. Our relatives, even Amma, who rarely left the house in her old age, came to our hotel to greet us. When we then went to their house where Aunt Min had cooked a nice dinner for us. I felt so amazed to be back in England again. It had been a whole year since the last trip, but I felt as if nothing had happened. Nothing had improved in my life. That's for sure. I was in the exact same position as I had been on the year before. As I had been on the year before, and a year before that, and so on. I was now a 21-year-old virgin, still suffering the same injustices of the world. I tried not to think about it for the sake of enjoying my trip, but the angst was too overwhelming. Our hotel served the same type of exquisite breakfast buffet as the hotel we stayed in last year. And once again, I took delight in indulging in the endless amounts of pork sausages, croissants, ham, bacon, and every other delectable treat at the buffet. Every single morning, For this vacation, I mostly stayed at the hotel, relaxing and trying to establish a sense of peace and serenity.
Do you want to keep going or?
Not really. Now I'm like, oh, okay. Now I'm at that. Like I can tell when I get to that point where I can't read it. Like I'm
Yeah.
just. What do you think? So we went 2 hours. We have what? How many pages left? 24, 30, 23 pages. How many pages did we do today? Because we started at.
We did like. What did we start at? We did almost 30.
28, and then we have how many did I say that we have left?
Something like 28.
So we'll have another 2 hours. So I guess that's what we planned.
Mhm.
I would have loved to get it done today though and just been done, but yeah, okay.
Oh, I didn't think we were going to be done. I thought we were doing this one and then
No,
one.
oh no, I know we were I know we weren't planning on it, but I was like, maybe we'll feel like it, like as we're reading, we'll be like ready to finish it. But no, I can't. I don't feel like it. Nope. I got overly whatever ambitious. Yeah. um all right. Well, should I so wonder what video I should play. Let's see. I'm trying to think. See, I was gonna play when my first reading when we first started. He was talking about like watching other couples and stuff, and I was gonna play that one after that. But then I'm like, man, I want to wait till like I feel like I need a break from reading, not when I first started. But that would have been perfect because he was doing that at the beginning. So I could play that. So there's a clip, okay. Like I said at the beginning, I'm going to do a compilation of all his videos. There's 22 of them. I'll probably not include the ones where he's just driving with music. I might include a parts of it, but
Don't put anything with music.
yeah. Well, I might include. Yeah, I'm not going to put the music, but what I was saying, I might include some where he's like looking, like blinking at the camera, like maybe a couple clips, and just like mute it, without the music, just to show his like, what's the
Weirdness.
word for that? Yeah, his like, yeah, weirdness, whatever. Um, Well, do you want to talk about this first, or you want to play the clips first? Well, is there anything fresh right now that you wanted to say? I do want to just make the comment. First of all, I want to ask you because I missed this. I read a comment when you were just reading. Did he pawn his laptop? Did I miss that?
I didn't hear anything about that, but like I wouldn't be surprised if I read it and it just didn't go into my brain.
Okay, yeah, I'm the same way. So you guys, can somebody okay, did he, you guys, anybody know? Because
I
somebody
don't think
commented
so.
that.
I
know
mean, I
I
don't think it
didn't.
was in here.
I don't either, but somebody commented that, so I'm a little bit confused. But I was gonna make the comment about I was gonna say how like I think this goes back on his parents. Where are my notes? I'm not gonna blame his parents, but dude, wait, I had all my notes. Hold on. I was taking notes in this and now I can't.
Yeah, I
Hold on.
actually just typed in the chat because someone mentioned the parents. I think his parents weren't great.
No, they were horrible. They enabled
But
him, and they should have. Now that I see how the red flags, and I feel like he is the type that probably was talking to his mom that way from just little comments he makes about how he talked to his mom about this. His mom, like, I feel like they enabled him. Them buying him a freaking laptop, first of all, I know that's something a little bit separate, but he freaking ruined his laptop. He obviously has $6,000 saved. He was buying hundreds of dollars worth of lottery tickets, but yet he calls his mom after he ruins his laptop for her to buy him. Go buy your own freaking laptop.
yeah, but
No,
that's why I'm saying his parents weren't great. But I don't think his parents are the reason why he did this or is this way. I think it's totally separate.
I'm
Yeah.
not. Yeah, no, yeah. Thanks for saying that because there's some people who are going to think that that's what I meant. No, I don't think that, but I do think there is. No, they're definitely
They
not
weren't
the
good
but they
parents.
could have possibly with the right what's the word for it, like interjection with them liking and them catching some signs. This is just for like maybe future parents to like catch some things, and they could have possibly maybe have got him some help and maybe prevented this.
Yeah.
I know it's hard, it's hard
It's
to.
hard because they could have been like, wow, our son is a weirdo. He's not going to do well in life, but not thought that this would happen. Like not
But what
knowing the
about his
extent of it.
violent tendencies? Do you think that they taught like he was open to his mom about like, man, I want to hurt them. Look at.
I don't think so.
Oh, okay, so you don't think that came out at all
I
to his
didn't get
mom?
that impression. No.
Not to his mom, not his dad for sure, but I was wondering. It seems like he's pretty open with his mom about some stuff. So okay, Well, then maybe not then. But dude, from the minute from 19 to 20, major change. Like this reading, he never was talking about these violent tendencies until he turned 20 and like talking about like hurting people, like actually really physically hurting them and killing them. He never like he
Yeah.
started talking about killing people like when he turned 20 and like ripping their skin. Like, what the
Yeah.
heck, dude? I didn't even expect that. I did not expect that. So going back to like our first thoughts, or at least my first thoughts of the first part, like, oh my God, has my mind changed like
Yeah.
dramatically about this guy? Holy crap, this guy's got problems. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. For sure.
Um, don't
I think
worry.
that, yeah, when he was a little kid, he's going to be limited in the types of problems he's going to have. So I think that the stuff that we were referring to as red flags was like, it could go either way. You could have grown up and dealt with those childhood red flags, or it could turn into this. I think that's what people meant. That's what we meant. We were talking about the red flags as a kid, you
Yeah, you
know?
know what? I don't think he was pretty too far. Like the way he wanted to hurt people, maybe like even with therapy, he might have been too messed up to. He might have always like at least been violent, whether it be maybe I don't know about killing people, but like hurting his girlfriend in the future or something.
He
I
would have
don't
had a
know.
messed up life for sure.
Well, okay, so I watched this clip and I want to watch the rest of it because I didn't get to watch it all, but I caught the beginning of it when I was looking for his videos. Dr. Drew, you guys know Dr. Drew. I love Dr. Drew from like do you know who Dr. Drew is,
Yeah.
Julia? Okay.
Hmm.
So he was talking about him and he had a guest on and I don't know, she was like in a psychology field and they both agreed. They both think this. And I don't know if I agree with it. I'm gonna read the rest of it and get your guys' thoughts. But they both agreed that with therapy, they think he would have been all right. That's the gist I got. I have to watch the rest of
Hmm.
it, but that's the gist I got from the beginning of their conversation. So they both
Yeah.
said, yeah, I definitely think with therapy he could have
It was really good therapy, like
yeah. But I
frequent,
don't know if I agree with it. But yeah, because he's like
frequent
his
therapy.
violent tendencies. Now I wonder if they actually read his manifesto. You know, did they? I don't know.
I mean, I think I would agree that if he had a really good therapist that he saw consistently and frequently for a long period of time, I think it would have made a huge difference.
Made a difference, but
But
how
that's
long it would
different
have
than saying, "Oh, he needs therapy," and then therapy what, once every 2 weeks, and then he stops, and he has a new one, like, that's not the type of thing he would need. He would need, like, really consistent.
yeah. But what how I think it would have definitely like maybe made him okay for a while, but I think it would always been there in the lingering right there. Like I think eventually like there would have been something that just making him snap. Like once he maybe thought he was okay from therapy and stopped it, and
Mhm.
then I think it would always be there. Like I feel like there's something
Yeah,
more to this, that there's some kind of issue in his head that it
yeah,
would always be lingering right there in his head. So I think that the minute he like slacked on the therapy, because he would have to work really hard, the minute he slacked on it, it would come back. And you know how therapy is. You think you're better, you're like okay, or medicine, you're like okay, I feel better, so I'm good. And then with him, I think he would need like ongoing therapy forever. You know what I'm saying? Like he would
yeah.
always have to like keep up with it. And I don't think he would stay consistent with it and he would be willing to work that hard. So I don't know. It's tricky because
Yeah, I wonder if he went to therapy, if he started to see any type of difference and improvement from the therapy, I I wonder if he would have continued going to therapy willingly. Because of think of like as messed up as he is in the head, think of how many times he tried to he wanted his life to improve so badly, even though it was like it would come out in twisted, weird ways. As opposed to someone being completely like despondent and just
no, he's
bleak.
not willing to put in the work though. We see how lazy he is. He
But
wants
I
all this stuff,
wonder
but not willing to do it.
but what I'm saying is that since
Mm-mm.
he wanted it so life to
He
improve so badly, I wonder if he saw that
no.
improvement, if he would have
I don't
cared.
think. He wants, money so bad he doesn't get a job. He wants girls so bad you know what I'm saying? No, I don't think he will. He wants it to be handed to him. He doesn't wanna work for it. So, no, I don't think it would.
Hmm.
Maybe for a minute, you know how he had The Secret and he's like, "Oh, yeah," like, positive The Secret, that book, everybody, like, went nuts when it came out. Remember? Oh, that was from the diary, right?
Well,
Where
it's
he's
in
like
here too, and then the power of your subconscious
oh,
mind,
was it?
another
Yeah.
one.
So, look, like it would be like a thing that would be like a temporary thing because he would want immediate, instant results. And if it didn't happen like like a perfect fix, he would give it up. So therapy, he would have to really work hard at it, and then he would probably be like, "Oh yeah, this is going good for a little bit," and then he like, "I'm good," and then no, he wouldn't want to constantly work at it. I don't think he would. I could be wrong, but I think he's lazy and he wants everything handed to him, and he's not willing. He wants everything like a quick, like, no, I don't know. I don't. I mean, I could be wrong, but
But
from
also think of like the work, I'm using that in air quotes, um, he put into like becoming a skateboarder, like all of those things that like I said, like it came out in like twisted, stupid, weird ways, but he did kind of put in work for things. It was
yeah,
just like
but not for I feel
misdirected.
like he would work at it for a little bit, but then he would stop. It wouldn't be like a ongoing thing that he would definitely need therapy like forever, maybe not as much after he starts to, get better, but he would need to keep what is the word I'm looking for? He would need to keep it like I don't know what the
Consistency.
yeah, but he would need to like not like fully ever just quit therapy. Like it would maybe be less after he was, but he would need like reinforce like little
Mhm.
reinforcements of it like an ongoing thing forever, I feel like. I don't think he'd be willing to do it. He would
Yeah.
think he was better after, once, oh, I'm good, look, I'm better, and then he would probably quit and then he would just fall back down
I
and then he
also
would be
think
like then he'd be
it
like,
would
therapy didn't work. That didn't work. Like, you know what I'm
yeah.
saying? And get all mad. Like, that sucks. Like,
Yeah, he'd be like, I saw all these people leaving therapy with smiles on their faces, and how come it works for them and not me?
yes, you're right. Exactly. That's exact. Yes. That would be such a exact thing that he would,
But
yeah.
I think it also depends a lot on what age he started going. I think if he started going young enough, it would make a much bigger difference than, so there's a lot of
Yeah, that's true.
different
Yeah, if he would have went,
there.
but I guess we'll never know for sure. But I'll try to find like more videos of people like professionals and stuff like kind of giving their thoughts on it just to see like how they think of it. Okay, so which video should I play the one where he's looking at the couples or should I play the one where he goes to Serenia Park for like I almost want to play the ones where he's like complaining like where he's being like over. I don't
Yeah.
know. I mean
Yeah,
he
whatever. I'm not familiar with them, so I don't know which would be better than.
so there's one where he goes back he goes to Serenia Park, which I wish I would have had it when we were reading about that. He goes back and he's like, "Oh my god, I just had so much meaning when I was a kid." You remember him talking about Serenia Park? So he
Yeah.
goes and he shows, "This is Serenia Park," and he like shows it and he talks a little bit. And there's one where he's watching a couple and he's getting mad, and it almost sounds like it's like he's reading from his manifesto because it's like exact things that he would say about couples. Like, look at them. That's you know
Yeah.
what I'm gonna play that one because I keep talking about that one.
Yeah,
And I
it's so
think
weird the way
that's
he
short.
talks, but yeah, I think that's a good
Yeah.
idea.
All right. So video file. Okay. So that one is
I
called
think the video games or computer games, whatever, really had a big effect on his language.
Shane. There's 22 videos. I found them all in the Internet Archives, the Wayback Machine or whatever. I found all 22. So yeah, I'm gonna play. I'm gonna do a compilation of them all. Yeah. So there's quite a few, but actually there's not a ton. Like I said, he does a lot where he's freaking like in the car, like playing music. What did you just say, Julia? I'm sorry, I like interrupted you. Say that again.
No, it's okay. I said it before too, in one of the
What?
other videos. I think that his computer games that he played obsessively had like a big effect on his language that he uses.
Mm.
Like big effect.
Well, what do
Like
you
talking
mean by
about how
that?
he had a conflict with this person and he has to overthrow the people, like
Oh, yeah, that's true.
enemies. Um,
Yeah.
it sounds
Yeah.
so, I mean, overthrow the people, the happy couples. That's a weird word to use for that.
Um, yeah, I didn't even catch did I read that or did you? I didn't
I
even
think
catch
I
that.
did.
Okay.
But there's a
Um,
lot of that though, where it just sounds like it's from some like fantasy novel,
yeah. Good
some
cat.
wizardy kind of.
What about like him talking about like about skinning people? Do you think that came from a video game? Because he used that a
Oh yeah,
couple times.
yeah, a few times. That was weird.
Yeah, that
I
was
don't
just
know.
like,
I don't know
oh.
what that's from.
it was kind of like, wow, like when he started like talking like violently about like hurting people, like it just came out of nowhere. Even though I mean, you see it coming out, his hatred towards people, but like, and his jealousy and stuff, but like, I didn't expect him to like just like talk about that in his manifesto like that. I guess I did expect it, really. I mean, look what he did. Um, but all right, so yeah, let me play this, and then maybe we'll even have some thoughts on that. All right, here it is.
Hey, Elliot, Rodger here. I'm just sitting in my car right now, enjoying the view of the beach. And my view has been ruined by this sight right here. In front of me, sitting right there on that bench, is a young couple, I presume about my age. I was enjoying such a nice view until they came and sat down and started kissing. This is the reason why life isn't fair. Why does that guy get to have such a beautiful girlfriend while I'm all alone? Why? Why can't I experience something like that right there? They're kissing right now. It's torture for me to watch, but I have to do this. I have to film this. I have to show the world why life isn't fair. I have to show everyone why I hate the world, because no girl would do this with me. Look at them. He's in heaven right now, sitting on this beautiful beach with his beautiful girlfriend, kissing her, feeling her love, while I'm sitting here all alone, because no beautiful girl wants to be my girlfriend. I hate them. I hate them so much. Why does he deserve to get that experience and not me? I can only imagine the heavenly things they'll be doing together when they go back home tonight. I'm sure they'll be having sex. What will I be doing? Lying in my bed alone, with no one, because no one wants me. I bet he goes to the same college as me. Yet he gets to experience his college life with his beautiful blonde girlfriend. And I have to suffer this miserable loneliness. It's not fair. Life is not fair.
Doesn't it sound like exactly how he wrote like the heavenly quote? It's like almost like
Yeah.
quoted from his manifesto.
It's so weird. Like it is so weird how it sounds so fake. It
I
sounds
know.
like someone joking.
Wait till you see more of the videos. It is. It's almost like, so me and Juliet were talking a little bit about this behind when backstage or whatever. So I asked her, do you think that he means it to be like fake sounding, like it's like a joke and he's being like, what's the word for it? Like he's almost making fun of it in a way.
I don't think so. I don't think so at all. And that's so weird because it sounds 100% like that.
So
I've never heard something sound so much like that that isn't that. And then it sounds like, I mean, it is fake to an extent. Like he's forcing it out for sure. Like he like exhaled at some point. He was like, like, like no one does that. Like it sounds like someone doing a monologue, like badly, like a bad actor, like auditioning for something.
Does. It's wow. It's like because he is being so fake. what he's like, it's not real, like what he's saying to himself. Like he can't even pretend. You know what I'm saying? It
Yeah,
just
like the
comes out
feelings are
so
real, but like with the words, like it's just so
yeah.
it's phony. It's
Yeah.
so weird. It's the weirdest thing.
Mm-hmm. It is. It really
It's like I could
is.
hear him like thinking in his head, like, oh, should I say it? Oh yeah, I should say that. I hate them.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like it's just so weird.
And how do people like worship this guy? Like, I don't understand how people take him serious.
I don't know how
Like,
many people do. I have to look into that because that stuff is complicated. You know, like
I mean, they have merch and stuff people buy. There's like people websites, a lot of like fan club type websites people have up. Go look, just search his name and you'll be
yeah,
amazed
I'm
some of the
gonna
stuff
look
you
into it.
find. Because I've been finding it because I've been looking for like some of the videos and stuff. And there's like there's a few people who are like huge fans that started like a forum. And I don't know, it's just weird.
I can understand. So I can understand being totally objective, certain young men relating to his struggles that he describes in the manifesto, and maybe being too ashamed to talk about it or even admit it to anyone else, and then feeling that link to him. Beyond that, no, you have to be fucking crazy to worship him, or you know what I mean?
Uh,
But I'm not surprised that, because remember we were saying like there are even some things that are like a seed, like a grain of truth in what he's saying, and he just takes it too far. Like talking about how women fall for like the girls fall for the wrong type of guy. Like there's a grain of truth in that, you know, and a lot of guys are regular guys who are mentally healthy are frustrated by that because it's a thing that girls go for like the toxic
yeah.
douchebag, like everyone, you know.
Yeah.
Um, and he just, you know, he overdoes it and takes it too far and stuff like that. But so I could understand young men relating to stuff that he went through and maybe feeling attached to him because they finally found someone who feels the way they do, and like they weren't able to talk about it before. You know what I mean?
But it almost
But
seems
then
like
he
that he's
kills
making fun
people.
of him though, because it's almost like I would feel like he's like he's almost like mocking them in a way, because you know, because it feels that way. So for them to like look, I guess because he went through with what he went through, probably took him serious. But it's almost like if you listen to him, it feels like he's almost just making fun of him in a way. I don't
It's
know. It's just
yeah, it's
weird that that's the
he's
person that they're freaking like
because he's
worshiping.
such a loser, yeah, and so openly a loser. You know, like every sentence of that manifesto is like just it's he's portraying himself in such a bad light. You know what I mean? Like that was one of the things that blew my mind too. And I said this on the other video, so I won't keep talking about it. But like, I can't believe that he wrote all of that, wanting as many people to read it as possible, and he just makes himself look so bad. Usually, and it's good he's being truthful, but usually when people write something about themselves, that they're going to leave, you know, after doing this big thing and hope that you know he basically was probably hoping people would look up to him or whatever. Usually people will, you know, make themselves look good in something like that. You know what I mean? In general, at any point when people write about themselves, something that people are going to read later, they don't talk about going and crying for hours over, you know, little things that he shouldn't be reacting like that to.
Yeah,
It's just, it blows my mind.
yeah,
I've never
man.
seen that like before, that it's so rare.
I just I wanna I wanna get a sense of, like, how serious people are like, worshiping like, what is it? Like, I understand, but are they be I wanna look more into that even. Like, it's just so weird. I didn't even know all this was going on. I just learned what an incel was, like, recently. I didn't even know what it was.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm a little behind on times. How long ago did you learn about what it was?
Incels in general,
Yeah, yeah,
maybe like 4 years ago.
yeah, I'm way behind. Oh, shoot. Well, actually, I'm glad I couldn't learn. I mean, it's not like it's something that I'm, like, glad that
Yeah,
I
you're
know,
not missing
but
out,
yeah.
but
Oh, wow.
But then you
I don't
also get the other side of it is you get people, any guy that's upset about anything, they'll call him an incel these days. Or any
Yeah,
guy
this
that's
term
socially
is thrown
awkward, they're like
around a
incel, and it's
lot.
like, so it's hard to even know what's going on with that. Because I'm seeing that constantly with the Idaho case now, because Brian Koberger could potentially be an incel type, but we don't know yet. And people are so quick to say incel, yeah, incel, because he, that look in his eyes, and people just go with whatever makes them feel good to think about for whatever reason. They'll just like put it on the person.
Yeah,
And incel is a big one that people are just running with right now. He could be that type. I very well could be. He could fit it, but we don't know yet.
I'm trying to think of reasons that they think that. Well, probably because he's probably awkward. I mean, he doesn't have a girlfriend, maybe, do you think? And like, I guess like that. People are thinking he's awkward around girls, but I guess, do we really know 100%? We just have that one person
We have
that
basically
went
like
on a
from,
date with
yeah,
some
from what
one
and
girl.
she didn't even say he was that bad either. If you actually listen to what she said, at one point she said he was like not that weird at all before she invited him in. And then, so what we have basically with the people that talk about, and we're talking about Brian Koberger right now, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. From what I've heard is basically like 50% of people saying like, oh, he was weird, or this is all people who don't know him very well, but like neighbors, classmates, whatever, saying like he was weird because of this one thing that happened. And then like the other half saying like, no, he was like a normal guy.
it makes you wonder, like, who is more accurate? Like,
He
like, are
could
the
have been, he could have been not a total weirdo and just a socially awkward normal guy. Then I think you would get 50-50, right? Like
yeah,
hindsight's 2020, they say. So it's
yeah,
easy to look back and be like, oh, that socially awkward guy
yeah,
reacted like this that time, and then they
yeah,
come out with it.
very true. Like, because now knowing, yeah,
I just feel
definitely.
like if he was a full on weirdo, the way some people are claiming, we would have way more people coming out saying like, that guy, I called it from day one that he walked in the room. You
Yeah,
know what I mean? Like that type of thing. Like
no, that's true. Yeah,
I've been in his class this entire time. Not once did he, whatever, did he look up from the ground or I don't know.
yeah,
Like real weird stuff like that, but we're not having that.
yeah.
So I guess we'll have to wait and see.
Yeah, we'll have to wait and see what they found with all those warrants. If they found like way he talked to any of the victims, if they got like information from like all the internet stuff, and you know what I'm saying? Did
Yeah.
Kate really go out on a date with him? Was that the guy she went out on the date with that called her a name and stuff? Was she the
Yeah.
one? I mean, that'll be really interesting. But God, we're gonna have to wait. Does anybody know? Is the trial? They haven't decided if the trial is going to be videoed, right?
I haven't heard, but I'm hoping.
I hope. I know. Why do I feel like that? I don't know. That's a tough one. It's up to the judge, right? So I
I
guess,
think so.
yeah. So, um, what else? God, I know there was stuff, but it was like when I was reading and I wanted to like, I tried to like take notes as I was reading, but it was too hard and I gave up because I had a lot of thoughts that I was like, oh, I got to remember that one.
You know
We
what's
talked.
weird that like it doesn't mean anything, but I just think it's a little odd is that have you noticed that he says on the world, not like in this world, on this
Yeah.
world?
I was thinking the one time I said it twice because I thought I read
Yeah,
it
I keep
wrong.
tripping up on it.
Yeah. And I'm like, oh, wait, I didn't read that wrong. Yeah. And then there's more of that where I feel like we already read it. There was a couple more parts this time. I was like, "Wait, we just read that part. Like, why are
Yeah.
we like reading it again?" I was like, "Huh."
The whole thing
So,
could have been edited into like 15 pages. You
yeah,
take you
yeah,
take
that's
out like the
true.
repeats of him saying he went
Yeah.
out one night, saw couples being happy, good looking. How come they can have that? I can't. Like that part is just it just appears every page or so.
Yeah, that's
Almost like he
true.
cut and
Yeah,
pasted it.
he did it.
The movie premiere part was kind of funny.
What part or in specific about the movie premiere?
Just like him like trying to feel special at the red carpet. Like
Remind me of what
and then he
happened.
then the security guard. So some dumb bitch of a security guard had the audacity to question who the hell are these people, because like they didn't actually belong there.
Oh.
And
See,
then
it
he
must.
said, that made me so, you missed this part? That made me so enraged
Mhm.
that I almost said, we are people who are more important than you ugly cunt.
Yes, I remember that
Like that's a
statement.
change from
Uh,
earlier in his demeanor for sure.
uh, man.
Especially because it's like not true. Like he's like talking about how he's wearing his nice shirt and all of that because he likes to like pretend he's, part of that world or whatever. And then when he gets called out, basically, he wanted to say we're more important than you, even though they're not.
Wow, yeah, I missed some of that. The paparazzi didn't want to photograph him, just the actresses. He said that too. Did he complain about that or no?
He was just cranky. I think that they, were like trying to push them aside to get pictures of the celebrities or something.
Oh, duh! Like
Yeah.
what the heck?
That they
Wow.
yelled at him to get out of the way or something.
That's what I'm saying. Like he did have some of the things that girls would love, like that part of him where he could have like taken her like out on the red carpet. Like why,
He had
it's
some
he's being a
connections, yeah.
chicken. Yeah, connections. It's all on you. Like that video we're watching. Why am I alone? Why can't I have it? Go find a girl then. You could find a girl. You're not a disgusting looking. You're a nice looking kid. Go freaking find a freaking girl. That's on you, buddy. You could
Yeah.
get a girl. Like that's his own freaking fault. You have all these connections. Like you have some of the things the girls like, you know what I'm
Yeah, even
saying?
like the materialistic stuff that
Yeah,
he's
that's what I'm saying. The
yeah.
materialistic that's not going to go far with his little messed up brain, but
Right, but it's not
still,
like he's
like,
this poor kid who like lives on the streets.
yeah. So he could have. I mean, all that whining. Go talk to a girl, you stupid.
I think if he did, like it's interesting to think like what if there was some girl he met who like actually showed interest in him, you think he would just like run in the opposite direction?
Man, I don't know. I know. I think he would find a reason where he's thinking, like you said, like where he'd find a reason where it's not true. You know what I'm saying? Well,
Yeah.
no, this or no, it's that. And then if maybe she did really convince him, there would always be something. There would always be some issue. Like he just wasn't. I don't think he was even mentally healthy enough to actually be in a relationship. But I mean,
Yeah, no, I don't think so either.
at
But I'm
least
just curious, like if someone showed interest in him, how he would even react. Because think of his reaction to that porn that he accidentally watched, or that
yeah,
PORN.
dude, can you imagine, like, if he actually got into a situation where he was gonna have sex with a girl, like, would he be able to he would probably start crying or something,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, because he's a child,
Yeah. Huh. Yeah, I don't think it
mentally
would without
and
a lot of therapy, he wouldn't have. Thank God he didn't get a girl because he probably would have messed her. I don't know. They probably would have left after the first day. Who knows? But like he would have stalked them probably, and
yeah, there would have
I
been
think he
all
would have been
sorts of issues.
possessive. He would have been super jealous. It would have been horrible for the girl. So now that I'm seeing, I know I contemplated before I read this, like, oh, maybe if he got a girl, would he? No way, dude. That would
I
not.
think he would have been too shy to even do anything about it. He
Like,
wouldn't
what
have
if
been
he had
able to
like
like
a
hang out with
aggressive woman that was like she like came up and was like initiated everything because he's never like you
her.
think
Yeah.
he would have? Is that what you're saying? Like
Yeah,
if
yeah, I guess in that situation maybe, but I could definitely see him being the type that's just like terrified of her.
thank you, misconstrued. Yeah, he would. I'm sorry, I don't know why I'm laughing. It's just
No, that's fine.
what? I don't even feel bad about calling him pathetic little because like look how he's just such
He
a
is, he
freaking
literally
evil
is.
little like jealous like anybody that has any happiness he wants to hurt them like oh they have a something he wants to freaking hurt them. He's just annoying. Oh my god, like he's evil. He's just
Yeah.
not a good guy. Like he's not a good person at all.
No,
Um
he's not.
he's a man.
It's just such a weird combination of different things wrong with him, I guess.
Yeah. I don't even know what else to say, really. So we have what 20 some more pages. So I wonder how it's going to end.
Yeah.
With that last, I still haven't read it. So, well, I don't know if I'm going to play any more videos. I might just wait and like, I don't know. What do you think?
I think we could be done for the night.
Yeah, I agree.
And
I'm
then
glad we did it.
we got one more.
More to go,
Snappy.
guys. So it'll be a 4-part, just like we thought.
Yeah, we did good.
Yeah, and our last one will be, yeah, it'll be a nice short 2-hour one, right? Or will it be less, maybe a little bit less than 2 hours?
Yeah.
All right, guys. Well,
I think Angelina, I think it was, what year is this? 2014?
Yeah.
That it happened?
Yeah, 2014, I think. All right, guys. Well, thanks for listening. So we'll do part 4, and then I'll look out for the compilation. Do you guys think I should put them all in one, or just release them one at a time?
How are they short?
I mean, some like there's a couple minutes. There's some that are like 6 minutes, 8 minutes.
I would say put them all in one.
I think.
If they're that short.
Okay. All right. Well, everybody have a good day. Good night. I mean, it's 11:47. Oh no, man. All in one. Okay. I'll put them in order. That's how they are. They're like in order. So okay. What else was I gonna ask though? I feel like there's something else I wanted to ask you guys, but I think I don't know. I can't think.
Oh,
All
I
right, guys.
couldn't believe that fucking super soaker orange juice thing.
Oh yeah. What the heck?
That legit sounds like something we would have said in chat as a joke. Like, oh, he's gonna go to Kmart and fill a super soaker with orange juice and come back to the park and spray them with the super soaker.
Jerk, dude.
Like, I was reading that, I'm like, am I reading this right? Like, that is so weird. That is the weirdest choice of action for anyone to take ever in any circumstance.
He's a weirdo. He's definitely a weirdo.
My God. But that, I don't know.
Yeah, orange. Yeah. Wonder what kind of orange.
And then to write about
pulp
it
or
like,
no pulp?
haha, got him, you know?
Yeah.
Like, oh my God, so weird.
Yeah. Oh, thanks, Darksea. The gooch, Kayla, Kim, misconstrued, Darksea.
Oh, thank you guys.
Thank you guys. Nicole, who else do we all the same people. We're scrolling up and it's all Brianna, Shane. All right, guys, Mamma Mia. Do you want Dwayne Browns? Shane, completely random videos. All right, guys. Yep, I'm gonna end it. I'll see you guys next time.
Have a good night, everyone. Thanks for listening.
Bye.
Bye.